The drama begins with our female lead, Lucy, returning to her old high school after 10 years. As she walks through the familiar campus, memories of the past come rushing back. She can't help but wonder if Lee will ever forgive her for the pain she caused him. With those thoughts lingering in her heart, the story takes us back 10 years to where everything first began. In the very first scene, we meet Lee, the school's biggest troublemaker. During the morning assembly, he somehow ends up being chased by the security guards. As he runs across the campus, he mischievously turns on every water tap he passes, soaking students and teachers alike. Within seconds, the entire assembly falls into complete chaos. Some students can't stop laughing, while the teachers are furious. That's just the kind of person Lee is: energetic, fearless, mischievous, and a little spoiled. Despite constantly getting into trouble, his good looks make him one of the most popular boys in school. Of course, after causing such a scene first thing in the morning, punishment is unavoidable. The teacher confiscates Lee's brand new motorbike and warns him that he won't get it back unless he starts taking his studies seriously. Then the teacher points at Lucy, the school's top student, and says, "Look at Lucy. She's an outstanding student. I wish you could be more like her." The teacher also gives Lee one final condition. The citywide mock examinations are just around the corner, and unless he manages to rank among the top 1,000 students in the entire city, he can forget about ever getting his motorbike back. Although Lee comes from a wealthy family and could easily buy another motorbike, this one means a lot to him. Instead of replacing it, he becomes determined to earn it back. The problem, however, is that he has never cared about studying. While Lucy consistently ranks among the very best students, Lee usually ends up near the bottom of every exam. Meanwhile, we get a glimpse into Lucy's life outside school. One evening, while riding her bicycle through the streets, she accidentally bumps into Lee. A small, bow-shaped keychain slips out of her pocket and falls onto the road. The scene then reveals the hardships she faces every single day. Lucy comes from a poor family and lives only with her grandmother, who is the only family she has left. To support their household, she secretly works as a private tutor after school. Since no one would hire a high school student, she pretends to be a college student whenever she meets clients. She even invents an impressive family background to appear more trustworthy. Despite all the lies, everything she does is for one reason alone: to give her grandmother a better life. On her grandmother's birthday, we're introduced to Jiang, Lucy's classmate and neighbor. He knows all of her secrets, and her grandmother treats him almost like her own grandson. Just like Lucy, Jiang is also an excellent student with outstanding grades. Sometime later, Lee learns from his friend Fan about a mysterious set of study notes that many top students use. These notes are secretly sold around the school, and nobody knows who created them because the seller carefully hides their identity. Even though selling study materials is against the school rules, the anonymous student earns a decent amount of money from the business. Soon, we discover that the person behind those famous notes is actually Lucy herself. To keep her identity hidden, she uses the nickname Mr. Bo, making everyone believe the seller is a boy so that no one can trace the notes back to her. After some investigation, Lee finally gets hold of Mr. Bo's contact information and immediately sends a message saying, "I need those notes." The moment Lucy sees his name, she blocks him without a second thought. She refuses to sell her notes to someone as notorious as Lee because she believes he'll only drag her into unnecessary trouble. Even after being rejected, Lee refuses to give up. He tries every possible way to buy the notes, but every attempt fails. Eventually, he decides to uncover Mr. Bo's real identity himself. After carefully examining Mr. Bo's profile picture, Lee notices a familiar tree in the background. He realizes it's located behind their school, so that night he sneaks over to investigate. The place is abandoned, with an old swimming pool and several unused desks scattered around. Most students avoid it because they believe it's haunted, but Lee isn't afraid of ghost stories. Hidden among the old desks, he finally catches Lucy studying alone. Smiling confidently, he walks up to her and says, "You're Mr. Bo, aren't you? I finally figured it out. Why wouldn't you sell me the notes?" Just then, a security guard arrives after following another student. However, Lucy had already prepared for situations like this. She triggers a clever trap she had set up earlier, causing a large cabinet to crash to the ground from a distance. The sudden noise terrifies the guard, who believes the place is haunted and immediately runs away in fear. Watching everything unfold, Lee can't help but admire how clever Lucy is. He asks her once again why she refused to sell him the notes. Lucy calmly replies, "Because you're always causing trouble and I don't want to get dragged into your mess." At that moment, Lee reveals something that completely surprises her. He's holding her notebook. During the earlier commotion, he had secretly stolen it without her noticing. Once again, Lee proves that although he acts carefree, he's always thinking several steps ahead of everyone else. Not long afterward, the results of the latest mock exam are announced, and everyone is stunned by Lee's dramatic improvement. At first, even the teacher finds it hard to believe. After the results are announced, the teachers initially suspect that Lee must have cheated. His sudden improvement seems impossible. However, after carefully reviewing his exam paper and questioning him, they realize he genuinely understands every answer he wrote. It becomes clear that he has actually improved through hard work. Meanwhile, Lucy immediately figures out what happened. She realizes that this shameless guy has been secretly studying using the notes he stole from her. As one semester comes to an end and the next begins, Lee continues following Lucy everywhere, hoping she'll sell him more study notes. Annoyed, she tells him he should be ashamed of himself because he nearly ruined her business by stealing her work. Lee sincerely apologizes, and Lucy finally says, "Fine, but from now on, you'll pay double for every set of notes." Around this time, we're introduced to another character named Lu Hui, a man who works for loan sharks. He shows up looking for Lucy, demanding money because she's late on one of her debt payments. It's here that we learn a heartbreaking truth about Lucy's life. Her father left behind an enormous debt before disappearing, and now she's the one forced to repay every penny of it. She keeps this burden hidden from her grandmother because her grandmother is already seriously ill, and she doesn't want to make her condition any worse. Lucy's life is filled with endless hardship. Her grandmother is the only family she has left and the only person who truly supports her. Although Lucy always appears strong on the outside, she's constantly carrying the weight of financial pressure and emotional pain. After giving Lee another set of study notes at school, she finally gets her little bow-shaped keychain back from him. During their conversation, she also discovers that Lee is secretly preparing to study abroad and is working hard to pass the TOEFL exam. Not long afterward, Lucy takes her grandmother to the hospital for another checkup. Unfortunately, the doctor delivers devastating news. Her grandmother's condition has become much more serious. While insurance covers some of the medication, she also needs several expensive medicines that aren't covered and could significantly improve her health. Hearing this leaves Lucy completely overwhelmed. She has no idea where she'll find the money. Desperate, she calls her mother for help, but her mother doesn't even answer the phone. That painful moment brings back memories from her childhood. Through a series of flashbacks, we learn that Lucy's mother abandoned both her and her father years ago to marry a wealthy man. As a little girl, Lucy cried and begged her mother not to leave, but none of it mattered. Her mother walked away without looking back. As if things couldn't get any worse, Lucy soon loses her tutoring job. The parents of the child she teaches discover that she's actually a high school student, not a college student as she claimed. Although they admit she's an excellent teacher, they feel betrayed by her lies and dismiss her immediately. Heartbroken, Lucy quietly leaves. While walking through an upscale neighborhood, she unexpectedly spots her mother. Curious, she follows her from a distance. That's when she discovers a shocking truth that completely changes everything. The wealthy man her mother married is actually Lee's father. In other words, Lee is her mother's stepson. The realization leaves Lucy speechless. The same mother who refuses to answer her own daughter's calls spends all her time trying to take care of Lee, hoping to earn his affection and become part of his life. Watching the scene unfold breaks Lucy's heart. At that very moment, she makes a painful decision. Looking toward Lee, she quietly says to herself, "I'm sorry, Lee, but I'm going to use you." Meanwhile, we begin to see another side of Lee. Although everyone sees him as nothing more than a spoiled rich kid, he's actually incredibly kind-hearted. Whenever he sees dying fish being sold at the market, he buys them just to release them back into the water and save their lives. Now that Lucy knows the truth about his family, she starts deliberately getting closer to him. She tells him, "I know you're planning to study abroad, and I also know you're hiding it from your family. Studying alone won't get you very far. Why don't we study together? I can help you." At school, Lucy also begins helping him in small ways. As a class monitor, she often overlooks his mischievous behavior instead of reporting him to the teachers. Little by little, she keeps creating opportunities to spend time with him. She even reaches out her hand and pretends that she's only helping him because of the money. But deep inside, she has a completely different motive. She's trying to get close enough to use him for her own plan. One day, she secretly sneaks into the teacher's office and uses the school landline to call her mother's phone. Pretending to be a school staff member, she mentions Lee and tells her that she must attend the upcoming parent-teacher meeting. Her mother is surprised, wondering how the school managed to get her number since Lee had always kept her away from his personal life. However, she's so excited by the opportunity that she doesn't question it any further and immediately agrees to come. As Lucy continues learning more about Lee, she discovers another one of his hobbies. He absolutely loves playing video games. She visits the same gaming arcade where he spends his free time and challenges him. "If I can beat you in even one match," she says confidently, "you have to let me become your tutor." Since she's never played the game before, Lee easily defeats her in the first 4 rounds. But Lucy is an incredibly fast learner. By carefully observing his moves and adapting her strategy, she manages to win the 5th and final round. Lee can't help but be impressed. Keeping his promise, he finally agrees to study with her. The two of them return to their secret hideout behind the school, where they begin studying English together every day. Lucy patiently teaches him, prepares practice tests, organizes study notes, and helps him improve little by little. As they spend more time together, the distance between them slowly begins to disappear. However, while they are studying one day, Lee suddenly starts feeling unusually hot. Meanwhile, Lucy notices that Lee has been feeling unusually hot while they study together. The very next day, when she arrives at their secret study spot, she brings along a small portable fan and quietly places it beside him to help him cool down. It's a simple gesture, but it makes Lee genuinely happy. She starts showing him the same kind of care at school as well. Sometimes she patiently waits in a long line just to buy him his favorite drink before class. Without realizing it, she's making Lee feel special. However, someone else notices these changes. Jiang quickly realizes that Lucy has been secretly tutoring someone, and after observing them for a while, he discovers that the student is none other than Lee. When he questions her about it, Lucy immediately explains that things aren't what everyone thinks. But Jiang knows her too well, and although he doesn't say much, it's obvious that he's beginning to feel jealous. As the days pass, Lee finds himself becoming more and more fascinated by Lucy. Without telling her, he secretly starts sketching her in his notebook whenever he gets the chance. The funny thing is that the two of them have far more in common than either of them realizes. One day, Lucy finds a dying fish and decides to save it. She places it inside her bag, but before long, the bag starts leaking water everywhere. With no other option, she and Lee secretly sneak into the school's chemistry lab to steal a container they can use to keep the fish alive. Unfortunately, a security guard spots them in the middle of their little mission. The guard immediately starts chasing them through the school, while the two of them run for their lives, laughing the entire time. What begins as a simple rescue quickly turns into an exciting adventure. Eventually, they find themselves trapped on the upper floor of the building. With no other way to escape, Lucy jumps out of the window first without any hesitation. Lee freezes. Unlike his fearless personality, he's actually terrified of heights. Seeing him hesitate, Lucy looks up at him and says, "Don't be afraid, just jump. Trust me, I won't let you fall." Encouraged by her words, Lee finally gathers the courage to leap. For a brief moment, it looks as though he's about to crash to the ground. But just before he falls, Lucy rushes forward and catches him. In that instant, what began as another hilarious escape suddenly transforms into an unexpectedly romantic moment, bringing the two of them closer than ever before. Next, Lee and Lucy sit together in the school backyard, quietly looking at the same unusual tree that first brought them together. Curious, Lucy asks why he likes a tree that most people barely even notice. Lee smiles and explains that the tree has albinism, which is exactly what makes it so special to him. He then realizes they both share the same unique taste. Lucy admits that Lee isn't anything like she imagined. She thought he was just another spoiled rich kid who never took life seriously and would simply inherit his family's successful business one day. Lee laughs and jokingly says that actually it was his life plan. However, Lucy quietly tells him that despite everything, he's a genuinely kind person who never hurts others. When Lee asks who she's talking about, she avoids the question and quickly changes the subject. Meanwhile, as Lucy heads home on the bus, Lee rides his motorcycle beside it the entire way. The two exchange smiles through the window, enjoying the peaceful ride without saying a word. In the next scene, Lee asks Fan to keep his study abroad plans a secret from his family, explaining that if they ever found out, they would never allow him to leave. Soon after, the two pass by a fish shop that is closing down for good. The remaining fish are about to be left behind, and Lucy feels heartbroken, knowing she can't afford them. Li buys every single fish without hesitation, casually saying that money isn't a problem for him. Together, they release the fish into an old swimming pool filled with water, happily watching them swim around. But Lucy suddenly notices a betta fish among them and quickly warns that it will attack the others. Without thinking twice, she jumps into the pool to save them, and Li immediately dives in after her. The two spend a fun afternoon swimming together while rescuing the fish. Later, completely soaked, they sneak into the school's storage room to change into spare club t-shirts. While changing, Lucy accidentally catches a glimpse of Li without his shirt and immediately looks away, blushing with embarrassment. Trying to hide her awkwardness, she asks why he wants to study abroad. Li admits that he doesn't feel attached to anyone there and encourages her to focus on her studies instead, reminding her that she's far more talented than he is and has an incredibly bright future ahead. Next, they borrow several flasks from the chemistry lab and separate the fish one by one. Lucy laughs and asks if he has never watched Animal Planet because betta fish can't live with other fish. Li simply smiles and admits that no one ever let him watch much TV when he was younger. He then looks at her and teasingly says that it almost feels like she's been finding excuses to get closer to him. Before Lucy can answer, a security guard suddenly catches them inside the lab. The next day, the school publicly announces that the two students broke school rules by taking laboratory equipment without permission. Everyone is shocked to hear Lucy's name because she's one of the school's top students, while nobody is surprised that Li is involved. Wanting to protect her reputation, Li immediately takes all the blame, claiming he tricked Lucy into helping him and that everything was entirely his idea. Lucy feels guilty after hearing him lie for her. Once they leave the assembly, she asks why he accepted all the responsibility when she had willingly helped him. Li simply smiles and tells her that her reputation is too important to be damaged over something like this. Lucy thanks Li for everything he has done and tells him she'll treat him to a meal in return, but this time they'll be going somewhere she chooses. Meanwhile, Jiang grows more and more frustrated as he watches the friendship between Lucy and Li become closer. During the school break, Lucy takes Li through a narrow market where he can't even ride his motorcycle. Li keeps telling her to hop onto the back seat so they can leave faster, but she immediately refuses, joking that she has never sat on anyone's back seat. Eventually, they reach a small noodle shop where Lucy's grandmother used to work. She orders Li her favorite custom-made noodles and confidently tells him he won't find noodles like these anywhere else. The owner knows Lucy very well, and after discovering that Li also loves motorcycles, the two quickly become friends. Unfortunately, the uncle innocently tells Lucy's grandmother that he saw her with a boy. When Lucy gets home, her grandmother immediately asks who the boy was. Lucy brushes it off, saying he was only a friend. However, her grandmother is already upset because she heard from Jiang that Lucy has been neglecting her studies and even broke school rules. Before her grandmother gets too worked up, Lucy gently calms her down. Her grandmother then admits that Jiang never actually told her directly. She figured everything out herself after questioning him. In the next scene, Lucy confronts Jiang on the rooftop, asking if this is really how friends should treat each other. Jiang apologizes, saying he simply couldn't hide things from her grandmother. He then admits that Lucy used to be his only friend, but ever since Li came into her life, he feels like she's slowly drifting away from him. Trying to change the subject, Jiang asks what kind of future she dreams of and which university she wants to attend. Lucy quietly replies, "I just want to become a kind person." Confused, Jiang asks why she would say that when she's already won. Meanwhile, Li buys a large aquarium and carefully moves all of the fish into it. He takes a picture and sends it to Lucy, reassuring her that every fish is safe and healthy. A few days later, while chatting together, Lucy invites Li to attend the school's parent-teacher meeting because there will also be a balloon festival. She asks him to release a balloon with her. In reality, the balloon is only an excuse. She secretly wants Li and her mother to meet. When the day finally arrives, Lucy secretly calls her mother using the teacher's phone and pretends to be the English teacher. She makes sure her mother comes at exactly the same time as the balloon festival. Although she feels guilty for tricking Li, she believes it's the only way. At the festival, Lucy keeps searching for Li, but he is nowhere to be found. One by one, the students write their wishes on balloons and release them into the sky, while Lucy doesn't write anything at all. Just as the event is about to end, Li finally arrives carrying a huge bundle of balloons. Smiling, he tells her he couldn't decide on just one wish, so he wrote all of his wishes on different balloons. The two release them into the sky together, creating a beautiful moment. At that exact moment, Lucy notices her mother arriving. Without warning, she runs over and hugs Li tightly, deliberately making sure her mother sees them together. However, the moment her mother walks closer, Lucy suddenly acts as though she barely knows him. Feeling completely used and confused, Li becomes annoyed and quietly walks away. Next, Lucy's mother asks if she truly likes Li. She bitterly admits that she hates his father because he constantly changes women and will never stop chasing beautiful ones. Now that she has finally gotten the meeting she wanted, Lucy's mother looks at her and says she has grown up and become much smarter. She asks how long she has known Li. The truth is, she never wanted Li's father to discover that his son's girlfriend was actually her own daughter. Believing Lucy planned everything for money because her grandmother needs expensive treatment, she coldly says, "You set this whole trap because you need money, didn't you? Fine, I'll give you all the money you want." Lucy accepts the card but says she'll only take the money on one condition, that after today she'll stay away from Li forever. Her mother hands over the card and coldly says, "From now on, you're dead to me and I'm dead to you. You're not a little girl anymore, so stand by your decision." Before leaving, the two have a heated argument. Lucy says, "I survived on whatever little food I could find without ever asking you for anything. But now I can't bear to watch Grandma suffer. You never paid a single penny for our expenses, so this money is my right. I'm not doing anything wrong. Besides, after Dad left, you took all the money he left behind." Her mother simply smiles and replies, "It's just money. It means nothing to me." Meanwhile, Li is busy preparing a special gift for Lucy. He carefully makes a beautiful pendant by hand, planning to turn it into a necklace for her, but Lucy has completely changed. Whenever she sees Li at school, she avoids him as if they were strangers. One day, Li even calls out to her, but Jiang tells her, "Your friend is calling you." Without even looking back, Lucy replies, "He's not my friend." Those words completely shatter Li. He can't understand why she suddenly hates him. Every time he tries to talk to her, she simply walks away. Unable to figure it out, Li asks Fan for advice. He describes a boy and a girl who were once very close, but suddenly the girl began avoiding the boy. Fan immediately understands who he's talking about and says, "Don't ask me. Go ask her directly. There has to be some kind of misunderstanding." In the next scene, Lucy is almost hit by a group of reckless bikers while crossing the road. Li immediately rushes in on his motorcycle, blocks their path, scares them away, and protects her. Afterward, he asks her to get on his motorcycle because it's pouring with rain. When she refuses, he simply takes off his jacket and places it over her shoulders so she won't get soaked. Meanwhile, during class, another teacher tells teacher Fan that Li has secretly been preparing to study overseas instead of applying to local universities. The teacher wonders whether Li's family knows about it. Realizing his dream could be ruined, Lucy immediately lies to protect him. She explains that she was actually the one asking Li to gather information about foreign universities because she wanted to study abroad herself. Satisfied with her explanation, the teacher decides not to investigate any further. Later, Li notices the matching shirt that reminds him of Lucy. Just then, he receives a message saying that his overseas admission has already been arranged and his flight ticket has been booked. The message was secretly sent by none other than Lucy's mother. Meanwhile, Lucy's grandmother catches her buying expensive medicine and secretly tearing up the receipts. Suspicious, she asks where a student could possibly get that much money and worries she may have done something wrong. Lucy gently reassures her, "Grandma, please believe me. This money is completely legitimate. It's my right, and I don't want to lose the only family I have." Next, graduation day finally arrives. After today, all of the students will leave school and begin chasing their own dreams. Jiang, the class topper, is supposed to deliver the graduation speech, but he is nowhere to be found. As a result, Lucy is chosen to replace him and give the speech instead. Meanwhile, Li and Jiang confront each other in private. Jiang warns him, "After today, we're leaving this school, so stay away from Lucy forever." Li immediately fires back, "Who are you to tell me what to do?" Jiang throws the first punch, and the two begin fighting. It is finally revealed that they are actually half-brothers. Jiang is the son of their father's mistress, while Li is the only legitimate son of the family. Their complicated family history explains why Jiang has always hated Li and never wanted him anywhere near Lucy. Jiang angrily says, "Don't forget, I came into this world before you." Li could easily beat him, but instead of continuing the fight, he simply warns him and walks away. After finishing her graduation speech, Lucy rushes upstairs looking for them. She immediately realizes they've been fighting. Li leaves without saying a word. Furious, Lucy turns to Jiang and says, My life is my choice. Please stop interfering in it. Zhang insists that everyone in school knows what kind of person Li is, but Lucy quietly replies, "You never knew how good he really was. He's a much better person than you think." Later that day, Zhang returns home to find his mother completely consumed by work. She only reminds him to study hard and never notices the injuries on his face, caring only that his school uniform is dirty. Meanwhile, Li is standing alone at the motorcycle workshop when Fan suddenly remembers something important. He tells Li, "Lucy protected your secret in front of the teachers. If she truly wanted nothing to do with you, why would she risk doing that?" The moment Li hears those words, he rushes to the place where they always studied together. Unfortunately, he arrives only moments too late. Lucy had been waiting there for a long time on the very last day of school, hoping to see him one final time. Just as she walks away, Li arrives. They miss each other by only a few seconds. The story then jumps from 2016 to 2026. 10 years have passed. Fate brings Li and Lucy back to their old school once again. As Lucy quietly watches a dog she likes, Li walks up behind her and softly says, "It's been a long time." As the story shifts back to 2016, we return to the last day of high school. Although both Lucy and Li wanted to see each other one last time, fate never gave them that chance. After deciding to leave the country, Li hands his beloved motorcycle over to Fan and says, "Take good care of it. And I need one more favor. I have an aquarium at home. I want you to deliver it to Lucy." Fan immediately refuses, saying he and Lucy aren't even that close. Smiling, Li reminds him, "Maybe not, but her best friend certainly knows you. Last year alone, she mentioned your name nearly 50 times while reporting you." Fan has no choice but to agree. When Lucy hears about it, she thinks it's the perfect excuse to return Li's jacket. A little later, Li asks Fan why he still hasn't delivered the aquarium since he's leaving in just 2 days. Fan scratches his head and admits there was a misunderstanding because he had told Lucy to come and collect it herself. To his surprise, Lucy arrives at his house much sooner than expected. She politely returns his jacket, explaining that she had it dry cleaned before bringing it back. Looking at the aquarium, she smiles and says, "These fish belong to both of us. Besides, my house is too small for such a huge tank." Li laughs and replies, "And how am I supposed to carry something this big onto a plane?" In the end, they decide to leave the aquarium with Fan and let him take care of their fish, completely ignoring whether Fan actually agrees with the idea. Soon, the day of the college entrance exam finally arrives. Lucy heads to the examination center with her grandmother, both of them excited because this exam could change her future. At the same time, Li quietly prepares to leave the country. He has already booked his flight and plans to disappear without telling anyone, knowing his father would never allow it. But his father learns about the escape through his informants. Without hesitation, he orders his men to spread the news that Li's late mother's house is about to be sold, knowing that's the only thing capable of stopping him. Then tragedy strikes both of them at the exact same moment. Just as Lucy is about to enter the examination hall, her grandmother suddenly collapses from a heart attack. She immediately abandons the exam and rushes to the hospital inside an ambulance, sacrificing the opportunity she had worked so hard for. At the airport, Li receives the news that his mother's house is being sold immediately. Every memory of his mother is tied to that home, so he gives up his flight without a second thought and races back. Lucy's life quickly falls apart. Her grandmother now needs surgery, expensive medication, and regular dialysis treatments. With the medical bills piling up, she has no choice but to give up her dreams and start working several part-time jobs just to keep them afloat. Heartbroken, she tears up her exam papers and watches her future disappear before her eyes. Back home, Li wakes up the next morning after hearing strange noises outside. He discovers his father's men removing one of his mother's paintings from the house. He is ready to fight them until they explain that the painting isn't being sold. It's only being moved to his grandfather's house for safekeeping. From that day forward, Lucy's life becomes an endless routine of work and hospital visits. As for Li, he watches the college entrance exam results being announced. Their former classmates celebrate getting accepted into their dream universities, while both of their own dreams have quietly slipped away. Not long after, Li and Fan are working at the motorcycle shop when they notice the owner's niece, one of their former classmates, has started working there as well. Just then, another familiar face walks in. It's Wan Hui, Li's longtime rival. The two have competed in motorcycle racing for years and never miss a chance to provoke each other. With a smug smile, Wan Hui says, "I heard your father has been begging my dad for business lately. Don't worry, one day you'll be bowing to me too." The insult is enough to ignite Li's temper, and before long, the two are standing face to face, ready to fight. Wan Hui refuses to back down and challenges Li to a motorcycle race. "If I lose," he says confidently, "I'll smash my own bike with my own hands. But if you lose, you'll kneel in front of me." The challenge is accepted, and the two head to a racing track. Before the race begins, Everyone notices that Wanhui's motorcycle is packed with expensive imported parts, making it far more powerful than Li's. Even so, the workshop owner isn't impressed. A fast motorcycle isn't enough, he says. The rider's skill matters even more, and with Li's experience, I don't think Wanhui can keep up until the final lap. As expected, the race is incredibly close. In the final moments, Wanhui loses control, but Li skillfully avoids a serious crash while pulling off an incredible overtake to cross the finish line first. Li wins the race. He walks over, kicks Wanhui's motorcycle, hands him a hammer, and says, "A real man keeps his promises. Go ahead, break it." But instead of honoring the bet, Wanhui glares at him and coldly replies, "I'll deal with you another time." The next scene shows Lucy returning home, only to find Lu waiting outside once again, demanding money. Before he can cause more trouble, he receives a phone call from Wanhui, who orders a group of thugs to teach Li a lesson, and even kill him if necessary. Lucy accidentally overhears the conversation and secretly follows the gang. Soon, she finds them surrounding Li. Li immediately realizes Wanhui is behind the attack. Unable to defeat him fairly, Wanhui has resorted to hiring goons instead. Li fights back fiercely and knocks several of them down, but the gang is simply too large. Seeing him overwhelmed, Lucy refuses to stand by. She quickly borrows a friend's motorcycle, races downhill at full speed, and pulls up beside Li. Without hesitation, she tells him to get on, the 2 speed away before the gang can stop them. Just as the thugs prepare to chase them, police sirens echo through the streets, forcing everyone to scatter. A little later, Lucy treats Li's injuries before they stop at a nearby noodle shop. While eating, she asks, "Why did those people attack you?" Li looks at her and says, "First you insisted on becoming my tutor. Then we became friends, and suddenly you disappeared. Now you've come back into my life again. What exactly are you trying to do?" Embarrassed, Lucy gets up to leave. But Li gently grabs her hand and says, "Our paths separated once, yet we've met again. Maybe this is fate." Lucy quietly walks away. The following day, Li and Fan are chatting at the workshop when the owner tells Li the truth about Lucy. He explains that she was once one of the brightest students in school and could have entered any university she wanted. But on the day of her entrance exam, her grandmother suffered a heart attack. Since then, she's been working multiple part-time jobs while constantly running between the hospital and home to pay the medical bills. Hearing everything, Li is heartbroken. He quietly visits the hospital and pays part of Lucy's medical expenses. However, Lucy immediately transfers the money back through WeChat. She tells him, "Buying me a drink is one thing because we're friends, but I can't accept money for my family's medical bills." Only then does Li finally understand why she had worked so hard as his tutor in the past. She had never been doing it for herself. She simply needed money to save her grandmother. From that moment on, he begins to see her in a completely different light. The next scene takes us to the game store where Lucy now works. Li starts visiting the arcade almost every day just to spend time with her. One day, he wins a doll from a claw machine and happily gives it to her. "It looks just like you," he says with a smile. Lucy laughs and replies, "The necklace is beautiful and it matches my ribbon perfectly. I'll gladly accept that, but this doll, it's way too old to look like me." Just then, Li receives news that someone has arrived at his late mother's house, the one he has sworn to protect. "I have to leave right now," he says. Lucy immediately asks, "Do you need any help?" Li looks at her for a moment before replying, "Come with me." The next scene shows Li and Lucy arriving at his mother's house while rain pours outside. Inside, Li's stepmother is showing the house to a potential buyer. Li immediately says, "No matter what happens, I won't let this house be sold." The two quickly come up with a plan and split up to scare the buyer away. Here, we also learn that Li's late mother was a talented artist. Her paintings and artwork still fill the house, and from the buyer's behavior, it's obvious he's extremely superstitious. Using that weakness, they begin their act. Lucy secretly turns off the circuit breaker, causing the lights to flicker and go out. The buyer becomes nervous and says, "Something feels strange about this place. I should perform a ritual before making any decision." Just then, mysterious noises echo from upstairs, followed by someone playing the piano. The terrified man slowly walks outside, only to discover what looks like blood splattered across the walls. That is the final straw. He immediately runs away without looking back. Outside, Li and Lucy celebrate because their plan worked perfectly. In the next scene, Lucy notices several paintings lying around the house and learns that Li inherited his mother's artistic talent and enjoys sketching and painting himself. But their happy moment doesn't last. Li suddenly realizes Lucy had entered his late mother's piano room. Upset, he asks, "Who gave you permission to go into that room?" It was the one place connected to his mother that he never allowed anyone to enter. His harsh words frighten Lucy, and she quietly leaves. As soon as she steps outside, her own mother is waiting for her. She takes Lucy to a bar and coldly says, "I thought you had matured. Why did you break your promise?" Lucy calmly replies, "What I took from you was my right. And don't worry, there's nothing between Li and me. We're just friends." When her mother learns that Lucy missed her college entrance exam because of her grandmother's illness, she mocks her. You two are perfect for each other. Neither of you has much of a future. Lucy then asks her to return the insurance money her father left behind, but her mother lies, claiming the money legally belonged to her. Even so, she offers Lucy some cash with one condition. If you take this money, you'll never contact Lee again. Lucy desperately needs the money to save her grandmother. Before handing it over, her mother forces her to block Lee's number and delete him from WeChat right in front of her. With no other choice, Lucy does exactly that. At the same time, Lee sends Lucy an apology message, only to discover that she has blocked him. Confused and hurt, he has no idea why. The story then shifts to Lee visiting his grandfather. His grandfather clearly cares far more about him than his own son does. After hearing everything, he orders the family never to sell Lee's mother's house or any of her belongings. Lee finally breathes a sigh of relief, knowing her memories are now safe. But later, his father privately tells him, "We're hosting a banquet and Wan Hui's father will be there. I heard you caused trouble, so you'll apologize to him." Lee is stunned. His father never even asked for his side of the story, yet expects him to bow his head. There is no way he will do that. The next scene shows Lucy sorting through some old belongings at home when she discovers her late father's insurance documents. To her shock, the beneficiary isn't her mother, it's Lucy herself. She realizes her mother lied and secretly kept all of the insurance money. Heartbroken by the betrayal, Lucy makes up her mind. If she couldn't keep her promise, then I won't keep mine either. Soon she learns that the Lu family is hosting a grand banquet, and her mother will definitely be attending. Realizing this is the perfect opportunity, Lucy decides to approach Lee once again and use the banquet as her chance to confront her mother. The next scene shows that even though Lee acted cold, he still couldn't stop caring about Lucy. Almost every night, he visited the game store where she worked, pretending to play games. In reality, he just wanted to see her. But whenever Lucy tried to talk to him, he deliberately looked away. He kept thinking, I only said a few harsh words. Do friends really block each other over something like that? Wanting to fix everything, Lucy asks her friend how she can add Lee back on WeChat without making it awkward. Her first plan is simple. She tells him the game store is running a promotion and that anyone who adds her on WeChat will receive free game tokens. Lee refuses without hesitation and walks away. Her friend immediately comes up with another idea. Lucy brings his favorite noodles to the store, pretending she just happened to buy them. But Lee coldly replies, "I'm not hungry." He even makes up an excuse to send her out of the store. Not giving up, Lucy pretends she's exhausted and unable to work overtime. Instead of letting her leave, Lee intentionally stays there for hours playing games, forcing her to remain at work. Finally, Fan can't watch anymore. He tells Lee, "Lucy already feels guilty. You've punished her enough. Just forgive her." Those words finally soften Lee's heart. A few days later, Lucy doesn't show up for work. Thinking she might be sick again, Lee secretly messages her using Fan's phone. "I think it's time we end this fight." The moment Lucy reads the message, she rushes over. Lee suddenly steps out from behind a tree with a smile. "So, you were looking for me?" The two finally apologize. Lucy admits, "I shouldn't have blocked you." Lee laughs and replies, "I was trying to apologize, and then I found out you'd blocked me. That's why I got angry." The misunderstanding is finally cleared up. They add each other back on WeChat and spend time playing games together again. This time, Lee wins the match, but he's surprised by how much Lucy has improved. She never cared about gaming before. She only became interested because of him. Later on, Lucy casually asks, "I heard there's going to be a live band at your family's banquet. Can I come and listen?" Lee smiles. "Of course, just come a little early." As he says that, he secretly starts wondering what she'll wear to the banquet. Elsewhere, Zhang has just been accepted into a prestigious university. It also happens to be his birthday, and like every year, he goes to visit his father. His father hands him an expensive pen, but immediately criticizes his clothes for looking cheap. He even orders his assistant to buy Jiang a wardrobe full of luxury brands. Jiang feels insulted. His father only meets him once a year, yet acts as though expensive gifts can replace love. "I don't need your charity," Jiang says. His father calmly replies, "You have your pride and I have mine, but I don't have time to stay for dinner." To him, even family feels like business. Jiang leaves with a heavy heart. When he gets home, Lucy is waiting with a birthday cake. The two celebrate together, and Jiang gives her 2 tickets to an art exhibition. "Let's go together. It might cheer us both up." Lucy notices it's scheduled for the same day as the Lu family banquet, but she decides she can attend both. Lee quietly visiting a boutique. Without telling anyone why, he asks the sales assistant to help estimate Lucy's dress size. Comparing her height to his own, he carefully chooses a dress, already imagining how beautiful she'll look at the upcoming banquet. Before long, the day of the banquet finally arrived. At the same time Lucy was getting ready, she picked up the necklace Lee had gifted her and even put it on for a moment. But after looking at herself in the mirror, she shyly took it off, too embarrassed to wear it. As soon as Lucy stepped into the banquet hall, Wenhui spotted her. With a sarcastic smile, he walked over and deliberately spilled his drink all over her clothes. Lee immediately lost his temper, but Lucy quickly stopped him. "There's no need to create a scene in front of everyone," she whispered. Lee nodded and used the incident as an excuse to take her upstairs so she could change. Inside his room, Lucy was surprised to find an elegant dress waiting for her. Looking around, she jokingly asked, "Do you always keep women's clothes in your room?" Lee laughed and replied, "Of course not. These belong to the stylists who work here." He had even arranged for a professional stylist and makeup artist to help Lucy get ready. Before leaving, he smiled and said, "Just think of all this as a loan. You can pay me back someday." As Lucy quietly wondered how expensive everything must be, Lee was called downstairs to greet the guests. It soon became clear that among everyone in his family, there were only two people Lee truly cherished: his grandfather and his aunt, Chilan, who had just returned from overseas. It was also revealed that the mysterious person who had been secretly arranging his admission abroad and constantly messaging him was none other than Aunt Chilan. She had been helping him behind his father's back. A little later, Lee's father called him aside. "Go apologize to Wenhui," he ordered. "I heard you fought with him again this morning." Lee walked over with a smile that hid his real intentions. "What exactly should I apologize for?" he asked. "For crushing your pride, or for being better than you?" He quietly mocked Wenhui before adding, "We're not kids anymore. Let's just pretend we've made up for our father's sake." With both fathers watching, the two shook hands and acted like close friends. Wenhui had no choice but to play along after Lee warned him that if he refused, both of them would suffer the consequences. Just then, Lee looked across the room and saw Lucy walking toward him. She looked absolutely breathtaking. For a moment, everyone else disappeared from his sight. Remembering the song Lucy had once wanted to hear, Lee led her outside and said, "The band wasn't planning to perform that song tonight, so I arranged a private performance just for you." The musicians began playing, and Lucy listened with a smile she couldn't hide. Lee then invited her to dance. Although she admitted she didn't know how, he gently guided every step until the two were moving together naturally. The atmosphere felt like something straight out of a fairy tale, giving Lucy a brief escape from all the hardships she carried every day. Lee wanted nothing more than to protect her, share her burdens, and become someone she could always rely on. As they danced, he quietly asked, "Do you know what this song is about?" Lucy shook her head. "It tells the story of a boy who loved a girl even though she kept hurting him. He knew she would betray him, yet he still chose to stay by her side until the very end." After listening carefully, Lucy asked, "What if I were the one who hurt you?" Lee smiled softly. "Then I wouldn't do anything." Their heartfelt moment was interrupted when Lee's father stepped onto the stage to address the guests. Beside him stood one of his late wife's paintings. Pretending to be a devoted husband, he spoke as though he still treasured her memory. But Lee could no longer stay silent. He interrupted and calmly corrected him. "The painting is called Never Ending Summer. My mother also created matching masterpieces for the other 3 seasons." His words left the guests impressed while exposing the fact that his own father didn't even remember the name of his wife's artwork. At that same moment, Lucy received an urgent phone call from the hospital. The doctors had finally found a kidney donor for her grandmother. However, the surgery would cost around $4,000, an amount far beyond anything she could afford. Still holding the phone in shock, she stood frozen as a difficult reality settled over her. Just then, one of the staff members approached Lucy with an invitation that had secretly been arranged by her mother. "Please show your invitation," they said. "Otherwise, we'll have to ask you to leave." Lucy froze. For a moment, she questioned whether she should go through with her plan. But the image of her grandmother lying in the hospital flashed through her mind, giving her the strength to make a painful decision. As soon as the stage was cleared, she walked straight toward it. Looking at the crowd, she said, "I'm here tonight because there's someone very special to me. The hostess of this banquet, should I call her my mother?" The entire room fell silent. People immediately began whispering, "Is she Guyan's daughter? Who is this girl?" Even Guyan looked stunned, fearing that Lucy was about to reveal the truth. But Lucy suddenly smiled and changed her words. "She's like a mother to me, even more than a real one. She has secretly supported my education for years without asking for anything in return. When I finally learned the truth, I knew I had to thank her in front of everyone." Within seconds, Lucy had transformed Guyan into a generous philanthropist in the eyes of every guest. The audience applauded and encouraged Guyan to join her on stage. She walked over, hugged Lucy warmly, and accepted everyone's praise as if she had devoted her life to helping an ordinary student. No one there realized that the girl standing beside her was actually her own daughter. Everyone believed they were witnessing a touching reunion. Everyone except Li. He knew both Guyan and Lu Xi too well to believe the performance. The moment he saw their expressions, he realized he had been used. Elsewhere, Jiang had been waiting for Lu Xi at the art exhibition. When she never arrived and stopped answering her phone, he went to the hospital to check on her grandmother. That's where he discovered she hadn't been there all day. While looking around, he noticed an invitation to the Lu family's banquet and immediately understood where she had gone. After the party, Li quietly took Lu Xi away on his motorcycle. He drove her to a hill overlooking the city before finally breaking the silence. "So now I understand everything," he said. "You came close to me, earned my trust, became my friend, all so you could get close to Guyan. I was nothing more than a tool." Lu Xi lowered her head, unable to meet his eyes. Li gently turned her toward him. "Tell me the truth," he asked. "During all the time we've spent together, did you ever like me even once?" Before she could answer, he leaned forward and kissed her. At that exact moment, fireworks exploded across the night sky. When they finally pulled apart, Lu Xi quietly whispered, "I don't know. I never thought about you that way." Even after hearing those words, Li couldn't give up. He tried to kiss her again, but she turned away once more. His heart shattered. Without saying another word, he got back on his motorcycle and rode off. Lu Xi watched him disappear into the distance before realizing she had been left alone. By the time she turned around, the taxi Li had arranged for her had already arrived. When she reached home, her mother was waiting outside the apartment. Looking at the expensive shoes Li had bought for her, she coldly said, "Not everyone is meant to be Cinderella. Be careful wearing shoes that were never made for you." Only then did Lu Xi notice that the shoes had rubbed her feet until they were bleeding. Ignoring the pain, she confronted her mother. "Dad left insurance money for me," she said. "My grandmother needs about $4,000 for her surgery. That money belongs to me. You took it years ago without my permission. Give it back." After a long silence, her mother finally agreed. "I'll return the money," she said. "I'll even cover the rest of your grandmother's treatment. But tomorrow morning, you're coming to our house for breakfast. Aunt Shilan noticed you tonight and wants to meet you. After that, you're going to tell everyone you're leaving this city. You'll fix the trouble you caused at the banquet." Unbeknownst to them, Jiang had overheard the entire conversation. After Lucy's mother left, he quietly walked over, handed her a bandage, and gently wrapped her injured foot. "So it was true," he said softly. "You got close to Li because you wanted to reach your mother." Lucy didn't deny it. Instead, she whispered, "I'm not a good person." Zhang shook his head. "Maybe other people won't understand your choices," he said. "But I do. Some blood ties can never truly be broken. Yet living with them can be the most painful thing in the world." The following morning, tension filled the breakfast table at the Lu residence. Li and his father were arguing once again. Li wanted to study art overseas, just as his late mother had dreamed. His father refused. He insisted that Li study finance and eventually take over the family business instead. Their argument was interrupted when Aunt Sheila entered with a smile. "Our guest has arrived," she announced. A second later, Lucy walked into the dining room. The moment Li looked up and saw her standing there, surprise filled his face. As Li stormed out, Lucy politely greeted everyone at the table. The only person she deliberately avoided was Li. The awkward silence didn't go unnoticed. His father glanced at her and calmly said, "Don't forget to greet your brother as well." Lucy froze for a moment. With a heavy heart, she slowly turned toward Li and quietly greeted him too. Li's mood instantly darkened. He stood up, ready to leave, but his grandfather stopped him. "Sit down, don't be so rude," he said. Guyan then announced that Lucy planned to spend the summer in a quiet place outside the city so she could focus on studying. But instead of supporting her plan, Grandpa and Aunt Shilan came up with an even bigger surprise. "Why go somewhere else?" Grandpa smiled. "Stay here with us, it's peaceful, and Li never takes his studies seriously. You can tutor him and help him prepare for his college entrance exams. We'd really appreciate it." Lucy immediately tried to refuse, but before she could finish, Li quickly accepted on her behalf. "I don't mind at all." Guyan instantly realized her own plan had backfired. She tried to object, and so did Lucy, but neither of them could change Grandpa's mind. Every excuse Lucy made was effortlessly countered by Li. Then Li's father added another condition. "If you cause even one problem during this summer, you can forget about studying art. You'll study finance abroad instead." Without hesitation, Li agreed. Despite everything Lucy had done, he still couldn't stay away from her. Later that day, Li opened up to his friend. "What would you do if the girl you liked suddenly became your sister?" His friend laughed. "Our situation is different. Gum Gang and I are special." Li looked confused. "How?" "She writes my name in her notebook all the time." "For love?" "No," his friend sighed. "For complaints." The joke couldn't cheer Li up. Soon after, Lucy packed the few belongings she owned and got into the Lu family's car. As it drove away, Jiang silently watched her leave from a distance. What Lucy didn't know was that Li had also come to watch her go. At the same time, another secret came to light. Guyan and Li's father still hadn't officially married. The biggest obstacle was Li himself. His father wanted him sent overseas to study finance, believing that once Li left, nothing would stand in the way of the wedding. Guyan shared the same goal. She wanted to secure her place in the Lu family permanently. When Lucy arrived at the mansion, she was shown to her room. To her surprise, it was Lee's childhood bedroom. It felt strange. Against her wishes, she was now surrounded by memories of the boy she had hurt. The room shared a common bathroom instead of private ones. As Lucy walked in, she found Lee already standing there, almost as if he'd been waiting for her. Embarrassed, she froze. Lee smiled faintly. "So you finally came, and you didn't even say hello." Lucy lowered her head. "I thought you were still angry with me. I never wanted to hurt you." Lee replied quietly, "Maybe you didn't mean to," but the result was still the same. Just then, Guyan walked over. The moment Lee saw her, he immediately left, sarcastically saying, "Your mother is here." He still believed Guyan was only Lucy's godmother, completely unaware that she was actually her biological mother. The next scene shows Guyan visiting Lucy's grandmother in the hospital. She acted caring and kind, asking about her health, while Grandma had no idea this was the same woman who had taken her late son's insurance money years ago. Afterward, Guyan pulled Lucy aside. "I'm not giving you this money for free," she said. "I want something in return." She handed Lucy part of the money in advance before continuing. "You need to convince Lee to give up art and leave to study finance overseas. Only then can I truly become part of this family." Lucy immediately refused. "This money already belongs to me," Guyan smirked. "If you expose me, I'll lose everything. But then tell me, who will pay for your grandmother's treatment?" Lucy fell silent. She had no answer. That evening, she made some noodles and took them to Lee's room after learning he had a high fever and was refusing to take his medicine. The moment Lee saw her, his face lit up. When she handed him the medicine, he obediently swallowed it without complaining. As Lucy turned to leave, Lee gently stopped her. "Stay with me for a while." She agreed, but instead of talking, she kept staring at her phone. Feeling ignored, Lee walked over, took the phone from her hands and tossed it aside. Then he lightly pushed her onto the sofa and leaned in with a playful smile. "I think I should pass my fever on to you too." Their faces moved closer and closer, but at the very last second, he stopped, leaving the moment hanging between them. Even in that moment, he was incredibly gentle with Lucy. The following day, Lee was thrilled when he received a bouquet of flowers that he believed had been sent by Lucy. That same morning, he headed to an interview with a famous art professor, hoping to earn a place in the professor's preparation class. Halfway there, he realized he had forgotten his portfolio at home. Lucy noticed immediately. She wanted to stop him, but couldn't. Instead, she grabbed the portfolio herself and rushed after him. By the time she arrived, the interview was already over. The professor had rejected Lee. "Your paintings are beautiful," he explained, "but they're only copies of your mother's style. I don't want your mother's work. I want yours. Come back when you found your own inspiration." Lee honestly admitted he had been struggling to discover his own artistic voice. The professor offered a few words of advice before encouraging him to return once he had created something truly original. Lee left feeling completely discouraged. Seeing how upset he was, Lucy couldn't stop worrying about him. A few days later, she came up with an idea. She often volunteered alongside Jiang at a children's learning center, so she secretly signed Lee up as well, hoping the cheerful environment would help him find the inspiration he had been searching for. When Lee arrived, the first person he saw was Jiang. He immediately turned to leave, but Jiang stopped him. "I was wrong that day," he said sincerely. "I'm here to apologize." After that, he welcomed Lee inside. Both Jiang and Lucy were already familiar with the children, but for Lee, everything felt completely new. At first, he had no idea how to interact with them, and the two of them patiently helped him settle in. Soon, he was playing games, laughing with the children, and slowly letting his guard down. Then it was time for storytelling. Jiang entertained everyone with a fun puppet show. But when it became Lee's turn, he froze, unable to think of anything. Lucy quietly stepped beside him and began the story. Once she got him started, Lee naturally took over. He told a heartwarming tale about a wolf and a sheep who became unlikely friends instead of enemies. As the story reached its ending, the wolf handed the black sheep a single rose. At the same time, Lee imagined himself giving that same rose to Lucy. The children burst into laughter, completely captivated by the story. And for the first time in days, both Lee and Lucy found themselves smiling together. Afterward, everyone sat down for an art activity. While sketching, Lee noticed Lucy talking with a little girl who shyly admitted that her biggest dream was to visit an amusement park someday. That simple conversation sparked something inside him. Just then, Lucy walked over to see what he was drawing. Lee quickly covered the page before she could look, only letting her see a rough sketch of one of the children instead. Even so, Lucy sensed something was bothering him, and Lee suddenly grabbed his bike and rode away. Not long after, Lee's friends came up with a plan. Officially, the trip was meant to inspire his creativity. In reality, it was just an excuse for Lee to spend time with Lucy at an amusement park. His friend laughed. "You could have just admitted you wanted to ask her out." Lee smiled awkwardly. If only it were that easy. The group spent the entire day enjoying every ride they could find. During the bumper cars, Lee accidentally bumped into a little boy who immediately burst into tears and ran to his mother. Watching the scene unfold made everyone laugh, including Lee himself. For a moment, he looked just like a mischievous kid. Later, Lucy wanted to ride the Ferris wheel. Lee desperately tried to change the subject because he was terrified of heights. Eventually, Lucy realized the truth. She pretended she wasn't interested anymore. The view probably isn't that great anyway, she said with a smile. Let's do something else. Lee quietly sighed in relief. Throughout the trip, he carried a camera, carefully recording every happy memory they shared. As they walked together, he finally asked, "Why are you helping me so much?" Lucy tried to brush the question aside, but Lee wasn't convinced. "I know when you're lying, just tell me the truth." After a long silence, she finally admitted it. "I hurt you, and I feel guilty. I just want to make things right." This time, Lee could see she was telling the truth. That night, the group returned home. Lee finally felt inspired again and immediately started painting. But every time his pencil touched the paper, the same face appeared. Every sketch became another portrait of Lucy. Early the next morning, Lucy walked into his room, curious to see what he had been working on. The moment Lee noticed her, he quickly covered the canvas from every angle, refusing to let her see what he had painted. A little later, Fan called both of them over. He had finally realized that he had fallen for Gamang and wanted to tell his closest friends. Lee laughed. "You figured it out way too late. I noticed you liked her long before you did." Fan then asked Lucy for a favor. "Can you find out if she likes someone else?" Lucy casually brought up the topic while chatting with Gamang, but the moment she asked if there was anyone she liked, Gamang unexpectedly mentioned Lee's name. For a split second, Lucy completely froze. Luckily, Gamang burst into laughter. "I'm just teasing you. I was only trying to read your reaction." Lucy let out a quiet sigh of relief. Not long after, she and Lee teamed up to help Fan with his confession. Fan planned an elaborate surprise. He decorated the entire school, chose Gamang's birthday, and prepared to ask her to be his girlfriend. Lucy came up with an excuse to bring Gamang to the campus that evening, while the security guards secretly opened the gate for them. As Gamang walked inside, she was amazed by the beautiful decorations leading across the courtyard. Waiting at the center was a giant gift box. Inside it was Fan. Unfortunately, nothing went according to plan. His phone had died, and the box's lock jammed, trapping him inside. Desperate, Fan called Lee and begged him for help. Lee pretended to refuse at first, but he couldn't abandon his friend. Instead of the security guard arriving, Lee appeared wearing the mascot costume himself. After plenty of struggling, Fan finally climbed out of the gift box. By then, he was soaked in sweat. His cake had melted, and every bit of romance had disappeared. He sighed dramatically. So much preparation, and everything's ruined. Gamang simply smiled. "I don't think so. I thought it was wonderful." The words instantly lifted Fan's spirits. By then, Lucy and Lee had already started leaving together. Lee deliberately stayed silent inside the mascot costume so Lucy wouldn't recognize his voice. But she pulled off his mascot head and smiled. "Do you really think I'm that easy to fool? None of our security guards are as tall as you." Both of them couldn't help laughing. Soon after, Fan officially confessed his feelings. But although Gamang appreciated everything he had done, she gently turned him down. "I don't even know which university I'll end up attending or where you'll study. I don't want us to start a long-distance relationship." Poor Fan was left completely heartbroken. As they headed home, Lee was still sweating inside the mascot suit. Lucy pointed toward her scooter. "Sit behind me, you'll finally get some fresh air." Lee immediately refused. "I never ride on someone else's scooter." Lucy smiled. "Really? I don't remember you saying that when I rescued you from those thugs." Lee had no comeback. He quietly climbed onto the back seat, and the two rode off together, laughing the whole way. Their peaceful ride didn't last long. A traffic officer stopped them because Lee wasn't wearing a helmet. Both of them apologized repeatedly before they were finally allowed to continue. A few days later, Lee took Lucy to a beautiful garden on the outskirts of the city. It was the very place where his mother used to bring him to paint during the summer. The scenery was breathtaking, and the elderly caretaker warmly welcomed Lee like family. Just then, the caretaker's son asked if someone could help retrieve a kite that had become stuck high in a tree. Lee instinctively stepped back. His fear of heights still hadn't disappeared. Without hesitating, Lucy volunteered. Instead, she carefully climbed the tree to reach the kite. Just as she was about to lose her balance, Lee rushed forward and caught her in his arms. The two tumbled onto the grass together while a heart-shaped kite floated gently above them. It was awkward, funny, and strangely romantic. Both of them burst into laughter. Later, the caretaker quietly pulled Lucy aside. "Lee must care about you very deeply. Before today, the only person he ever brought here was his mother. You're the second." Those words lingered in Lucy's mind. She continued enjoying the peaceful afternoon while Lee slowly rediscovered his inspiration. As they sat together beneath the trees, Lee softly admitted, "I'm starting to forget my mother's face." Lucy understood exactly how he felt. I know that feeling. Sometimes I'm afraid I'll forget my father's voice too, little by little. The words stayed with Lucy long after they left the garden. She couldn't stop thinking about everything Lee had shared with her. She accidentally fell asleep while reviewing her notes. When Lee found her sleeping, he smiled softly instead of waking her right away. After a while, he gently called her name, Lucy. She slowly opened her eyes. Without saying much, Lee held out a canvas. The moment she looked at it, she was speechless. It was another breathtaking painting, and just like all the others, it was a portrait of her. Lee smiled helplessly. What am I supposed to do? Every time I pick up a pencil, I end up drawing you. He looked straight into her eyes before quietly adding, You're my greatest inspiration. Lucy stood there in complete silence, her heart racing as she stared at the painting in front of her. Back at the house, Lucy returns to her room only to find Zhou Wan waiting for her. She reminds Lucy not to forget their deal. If you really want the money, make sure Lee gives up art and studies finance instead. Just then, Lee walks in, so Zhou Wan immediately pretends she was only checking on Lucy before leaving. As soon as they're alone, Lee gives Lucy a surprise. It's the portrait he secretly painted of her. Lucy is touched and asks, Aren't you going to show this to your professor? Lee smiles. I've already prepared another portfolio. This one is only for you. The moment he leaves, Zhou Wan returns, finds the hidden painting, and instantly tears it to pieces. Seeing Lee's heartfelt gift destroyed leaves Lucy devastated. Later that evening, everyone gathers for a barbecue at Uncle's workshop. Lee hands Lucy a soft drink, refusing to let her drink alcohol. But she secretly takes a few sips anyway. Before long, she's completely drunk. As Lee looks after her, she finally opens up. I don't want to be a bad person, but I keep becoming one. I've been kind to you because I feel guilty. Lee gently replies, Everyone has a dark side. I'm not as perfect as you think. Still half asleep, Lucy smiles and keeps repeating, But you're a good person. I really like you. Hearing those words fills Lee with happiness. He quietly carries her home and stays by her side until she falls asleep. The next morning, Zhou Wan secretly sneaks into Lee's room, finds the portfolio he prepared for his professor, and swaps it with fake artwork. At the same time, she casually asks Lucy which flowers would look best at her wedding. That immediately makes Lucy suspicious. Realizing what Zhou Wan has done, she rushes to Lee's room and discovers his real portfolio hidden inside her own closet. Furious, she confronts her mother. Our deal is over. If you try to ruin his future again, I'll expose everything. With that, she grabs the portfolio and races across the city. Even when traffic brings everything to a standstill, she jumps out of the taxi and runs the rest of the way. She reaches the professor just in time. Fortunately, he hadn't even opened the fake portfolio yet. Lucy quietly swaps it back without anyone noticing. A little later, the professor meets Lee and says, Your latest work feels rushed. But after seeing the rest of your portfolio, I've decided I really like your work. The professor no longer rejected Lee. Instead, he revealed that a girl had personally delivered his portfolio. The moment Lee heard that, he knew it had to be Lucy. When he returned home, he went to Lucy's room and found the portrait he had gifted her torn into pieces. Heartbroken, he quietly took it back. A little later, Aunt Chilan told him the truth. She had discovered that Zhou Wan was once married and that Lucy was actually her real daughter, not her daughter. She warned Lee that the mother and daughter might be plotting something. But despite everything, Lee refused to believe Lucy would ever use him. At the same time, Lucy decided she would never take Zhou Wan's money again. Instead, she applied for a loan. She asked for $2,500, but the lender initially agreed to only $1,250. After Lucy reminded him how much he had trusted her late father, he finally agreed to approve the full amount. Soon after, Lucy quietly packed her belongings and prepared to leave Lee's house. Before she could slip away, Lee stopped her. She made several excuses, but after he caught her lying, she finally admitted, I just don't want to stay here anymore. Still suspicious, Lee secretly followed her. His search led him to Lu, who had come demanding money. Lucy brushed it off as unpaid rent and quickly left. Lee questioned Lu, but Lu refused to tell him anything. Instead, he challenged Lee to a basketball match. If I lose, I'll tell you everything. The game quickly turned dirty. Lu's team kept cheating, and even the referee was on their side. Even so, Lee refused to give up. During halftime, Lu walked over to Lucy and made a disgusting comment about how she had made Lee fall for her. Lucy immediately fired back. No matter how much you cheat, you'll never be worth the dirt beneath his shoes. Humiliated, Lu shoved her to the ground and kicked her before walking away. Even after seeing all of that, Lucy stayed quiet. When the game resumed, Lee completely turned things around. In the final seconds, he scored the winning point and defeated Lu. As everyone celebrated, Lucy quietly tried to leave, but Lee noticed the bruise on her forehead and the way she was limping. She claimed she had simply fallen. Lee didn't believe a word. The moment she admitted Lu was responsible, his anger exploded. He rushed over and fought Lu on the spot. By the time the fight ended, both of them were injured, and the police had arrived. Lee was still furious, but Lucy stopped him before the fight could continue. To calm down, he took her to their favorite noodle shop. The owner assumed the two had argued, and Lee, still upset, walked outside without saying a word. Lucy felt heartbroken. A few moments later, though, Lee returned. He hadn't left because he was angry. He had gone to buy medicine for her. He carefully treated the cut on her forehead, then gently applied medicine to her injured leg. After that, he looked at her and said, "Please stop lying to me." Lucy lowered her head. "I don't like lying either, but there are some things I just can't tell you." Lee sighed. "Fine, but if Lou ever bothers you again, tell me immediately. I'll deal with him." Instead of letting her walk home, he carried her on his back all the way to her apartment. When they reached the door, Lee realized no one else was home. "You said your grandmother was here," Lucy quietly admitted. "I lied." That answer hurt him once again, and he silently walked away. Back home, Lee stared at the repaired portrait he had taped back together. He already knew Lucy was Guyon's daughter, but he couldn't understand why she kept hiding the truth. The next morning, Lucy woke up to a leaking water pipe. Coincidentally, both Lee and Jiang showed up at her apartment. Jiang tried fixing the pipe first, but it burst again, sending water everywhere. Lee quickly pulled Lucy out of the way before she got soaked, leaving the two staring into each other's eyes. Jiang awkwardly turned off the water before the moment became even more romantic. This time, Lee repaired the pipe himself and proudly declared he had done a better job. To thank them, Lucy offered to cook lunch. Since her apartment was flooded, Jiang invited them to his house instead. While changing clothes there, Lee suddenly asked Jiang, "Do you like Lucy?" Before Jiang could answer, Lucy walked in, and both of them instantly changed the subject. She prepared lunch, but just as they started eating, Jiang's mother came home. The moment she saw Lee, she coldly said, "No one from the Lu family is welcome here." With no choice, Lee and Lucy left together. On the way, Lee asked, "Don't you want to ask me anything?" Lucy smiled. "I already figured out that you and Jiang are brothers." Lee nodded and admitted it, explaining that Jiang's mother had always hated him and his mother because of their complicated family history. Soon after, they arrived at the hospital. As Lucy packed a few things for her grandmother, Lee accidentally noticed loan documents on the table. Without exposing what he had seen, he casually asked, "Are you sure everything is okay financially?" Lucy simply smiled and replied, "Everything is fine." But Lee knew she was hiding the truth once again. Before Lee could leave the hospital, Lucy's grandmother noticed him and warmly invited him inside. She couldn't stop smiling as she looked at him. What a handsome young man. A few moments later, the doctors called Lucy outside, leaving Lee alone with her grandmother. She gently told him, "Lucy is only 18, but she's carrying burdens no one her age should have. Please stay by her side. Be her best friend and help her smile again. That's all I wish for." Her words stayed with Lee. Just then, the doctors returned with good news. A matching kidney donor had finally been found, and the transplant needed to happen as soon as possible. Instead of celebrating, her grandmother quietly worried about the expensive medical bills. Afterward, Lee stopped one of the doctors and asked, "They're struggling financially. How are they going to pay for this?" The doctor replied, "Lucy said she's discussing everything with her mother. She promised the expenses would be covered." Hearing that, Lee finally understood everything. He got on his bike and rode away, realizing Guyon had been using Lucy's grandmother's illness to control her. Now he knew Lucy wasn't trying to hurt him. She was only trying to save the only family she had left. Now that Lee finally knows why Lucy desperately needs money, he goes straight to Guyon. "I know you're Lucy's real mother. I'll agree to study finance abroad, but only if you give Lucy the money she needs." Guyon couldn't be happier. Soon after, she visits Lucy's grandmother at the hospital and pretends to be concerned. Then she quietly poisons her mind. She claims Lucy is only staying close to Lee because he's rich and can help pay the medical bills. Hearing this, her grandmother feels heartbroken and blames herself for becoming Lucy's burden. At the same time, Lee's father returns from his business trip. He's furious after learning that Lee's art professor has accepted him as a student. To everyone's surprise, Lee suddenly agrees to study finance abroad. Guyon is thrilled. Lee, however, gives her one condition: transfer the money to Lucy. Guyon promises she'll do it the moment he boards the plane. Meanwhile, Lucy is about to finalize her loan when Guyon calls. She smugly tells her, "You did a great job. Lee is leaving, so you'll get your money." Lucy is devastated. She desperately tries calling Lee, but he never answers. She searches everywhere for him, but he's nowhere to be found. Later, back at the hospital, her grandmother quietly knits a scarf. Lucy tells her it's summer, but her grandmother simply smiles and says she just wants to keep herself busy. Then she asks, "What exactly is going on between you and Lee?" Lucy insists they're only classmates. Her grandmother smiles. "You can't fool me. He's a good boy. Can I trust him to take care of you?" Those words almost bring Lucy to tears. Meanwhile, Lee decides to sell his beloved motorcycle. His friends are confused, but Uncle realizes Lee needs money and doesn't want to ask his family for help. Not long after, Lucy learns from a doctor that Lee had secretly asked about her grandmother's treatment costs. Now she understands that he knows everything. She also discovers he's selling his bike before leaving the country. She wants to see him, but can't find him. Just then, an emergency message spreads through their school. A student is threatening to jump from the rooftop. Lee rushes up to stop her, even though he's terrified of heights because of the trauma of losing his own mother the same way. Lucy, who is nearby, immediately runs to the school to help. Together, they try to convince the girl not to throw her life away. The girl standing on the rooftop looked at Lucy and said, "You have good grades, you're beautiful, and you have a bright future. You'll never understand my pain." Lucy calmly shook her head. She told her everything, how she lost her father, how her mother abandoned her, how her grandmother was fighting for her life, how she'd borrowed money everywhere and even hurt the people she cared about most. "I hate myself sometimes, but even then, I still want to live. You only see the bright side of other people's lives. You never see the pain they're hiding." Her words finally reached the girl, but the moment she saw her own mother downstairs, she panicked again. "If I go home, she'll beat me." Just then, Lee stepped forward. "My mother died the same way. I still see that moment every time I close my eyes. The people who love you should never have to remember you like that. Please, come back." The girl finally lost her balance. Lee grabbed her hand and the rescue team caught her, but Lee almost fell with her. Without thinking twice, Lucy grabbed Lee's hand. He begged her to let go, but she refused. In the end, both of them fell onto the rescue cushion below and survived. A little later, they were taken to the hospital. Instead of finishing their checkups, they both searched everywhere for each other. When they finally met, they ran straight into each other's arms. Lucy hugged him tightly and finally told him the truth. "Guyan isn't my sponsor. She's my biological mother." Lee smiled. "I already knew." Before they could talk any further, Aunt Chilan arrived and dragged Lee away, scolding him for risking his life. As always, she joked around to cheer him up. Soon after, the rescued girl came to thank both of them. She admitted they had saved her life and even smiled before saying, "You and Lee are perfect together." Later, Lee took Lucy to the same park where his mother used to bring him as a child. There, he finally opened up about his past. He told her his mother came from a wealthy family, was a talented artist, and truly loved his father. But years later, she discovered he had been cheating on her all along. He had another son, Jiang, a child who had actually been born before Lee. The betrayal shattered her completely. She fell into deep depression and eventually took her own life. As Lee finished telling the story, Lucy quietly sat beside him, sharing his pain without saying a single word. Seeing Lee so heartbroken, Lucy does everything she can to cheer him up. She jokes around, teases him a little, and when that doesn't work, she smiles and asks, "Are you hungry? Want to eat something I cook?" Lee immediately agrees. The two head back to his mother's house. While Lee struggles in the kitchen and barely manages to cut the vegetables, Lucy quickly prepares a few simple homemade dishes. The moment Lee tastes them, he can't stop smiling. Lucy laughs and says, "We only eat like this during New Year's at my house. You're lucky today." As they cook, she also teaches him a few easy recipes. She wants him to remember them after he leaves the country because homemade food can never be replaced by restaurant meals. Later, when Lucy tries to wash the dishes, Lee stops her. She finally asks the question she's been holding back. "Why are you really giving up your dream?" Lee admits he had no other choice. He even sold the motorcycle he loved the most. "I just want you to live happily. That's enough for me." Lucy quietly replies, "I want you to be happy too." But Lee smiles. "I'll be happy if you're happy." Hearing that, Lucy has no words. Before leaving, Lee asks her to take good care of their fish after he's gone. She promises she will. Since he'll be leaving after summer, Lucy jokingly decides to celebrate every holiday in advance. The two start wishing each other Happy New Year and every festival they can think of. Finally, Lee smiles and says, "Happy Valentine's Day." Lucy instantly blushes. A little later, Lee takes her into his mother's art studio for the very first time. It was the room he had never allowed anyone else to enter. Standing beside his mother's unfinished painting, he gently holds Lucy's hand and asks, "Will you be my girlfriend?" Lucy is completely speechless. Seeing how nervous she is, Lee smiles and says, "You don't have to answer now. Take your time." Later, Lucy visits her grandmother at the hospital. The doctors decide to let her return home and come back only for dialysis treatments. Lucy feels relieved, but after she leaves, her grandmother secretly tells the doctor she wants to cancel the kidney transplant. She refuses to become any more of a burden on her granddaughter. Unaware of this heartbreaking decision, Lucy suddenly receives a message from Lee. He was still waiting for her answer. Lee gently reminds Lucy about his confession and says, "I know you're still thinking about it. Come to school tomorrow. This time I'll propose to you properly." Hearing those words, Lucy can't hide her smile. Deep down, she has already decided to say yes. For the first time in a long while, happiness finally seems to be finding its way into her life. But that same day, her grandmother says she wants to visit a temple. Lucy offers to go with her, but Grandma refuses with a smile. "You talk too much. I'll get a headache." Then she looks at Lucy with teary eyes. "I didn't even realize when you grew up. You've become such a beautiful young woman." She hugs her tightly before leaving, while Lucy promises to be waiting at home. At the same time, Lee is busy preparing the perfect proposal. He asks Fan for Gamang's phone number, but Fan immediately misunderstands and refuses. After a lot of arguing, Lee finally bribes him with a gift and gets the number. He even asks Gamang to help him print their best photos together, planning to decorate the place where he will confess. Lucy also buys a beautiful framed photo as a gift for Lee. She plans to give it to him after accepting his proposal, but fate has something far more painful waiting for her. Suddenly, she receives a call from the hospital. Her grandmother's condition has become critical. While Lee waits at the place where they first met, remembering every moment they shared, Lucy slowly walks into the hospital. Her legs feel too heavy to move. When she opens the hospital room, she sees her grandmother lying there, no longer alive. The only family she had left is gone. She breaks down in tears. Lee keeps waiting for hours, but Lucy never arrives. The next day, he waits outside her apartment until she finally returns. He happily asks, "Are you ready to come with me?" But Lucy quietly walks past him without saying a word. Confused, Lee follows her inside. That's when he notices her grandmother is nowhere to be seen. Lucy silently looks at the sweater her grandmother knitted for her. Then she finds the prayer her grandmother had written at the temple. She hadn't wished for herself. She had only prayed that Lucy would live a happy life. Unable to hold back any longer, Lucy bursts into tears. Only then does Lee realize the heartbreaking truth. Her grandmother has passed away. He gently comforts her. "I'm here. You don't have to face this alone." Lucy quietly begins preparing the funeral with only a few simple items. But Lee knows her grandmother was loved by many people. He tells her they shouldn't let her leave this world so quietly. Without wasting another second, he goes to ask Jiang for help. Jiang's mother is furious when she first sees Lee. But the moment she hears that Grandma has passed away, everything changes. She immediately tells Jiang, "Go help them." And without another word, they all come together to give Grandma the farewell she truly deserves. After Grandma's funeral preparations begin, Lu arrives with his boss, Mr. Feng. On the way out, Lu tries to mock Lucy again, but Mr. Feng has known her father and grandmother for years, so he comes to pay his final respects. Before leaving, Mr. Feng kindly tells Lucy, "You don't have to pay interest on your loan for the next 3 months." But Lucy still hands him the money she had prepared, along with a record of every payment she had already made. After checking the accounts, Mr. Feng realizes Lu has been stealing part of the money all along. Furious, he begins questioning him on the spot. Just then, Lee arrives, and he isn't alone. He has brought Grandma's neighbors, old friends, the noodle shop owner, former co-workers, and everyone whose life she had touched. The simple farewell Lucy imagined turns into a beautiful funeral filled with love. Then Gamang plays a video Grandma had recorded before her passing. With a warm smile, Grandma says, "If you're watching this, don't cry for me." She even jokes with the noodle shop owner, saying he looks terrible whenever he cries, making everyone smile through their tears. She says she lived a peaceful life and was happiest because she had Lucy by her side. Her only wish is for her granddaughter to live happily, succeed in life, and never stop smiling. After the funeral, Lee wants to stay with Lucy, but an urgent call forces him to leave. His stepmother is busy choosing her wedding dress and reminds him about his promise to study abroad. She coldly says, "Once you board the plane, I'll transfer the money." Lee looks at her with disappointment. The person who needed that money is already gone. She pretends to be heartbroken, but Lee no longer believes a single word she says. Back at home, Lucy struggles to move on. Every corner of the house reminds her of Grandma. One day, she puts water on the stove, then falls asleep from exhaustion. The water boils over, the flame goes out, and gas quickly fills the apartment. At that exact moment, Lee arrives outside. He smells the gas immediately. No matter how loudly he calls, Lucy doesn't answer. Ignoring his fear of heights, he climbs onto the balcony, breaks the window, and rushes inside. He finds Lucy unconscious, carries her out, and races her to the hospital. The moment she wakes up, she grabs his hand. "Believe me, I wasn't trying to end my life." Lee looks into her eyes. "I believe you." After that, Lee and his friends do everything they can to cheer her up. They tell jokes, keep her company, and try to make her smile. But Lucy shuts herself away. She barely eats, barely speaks, and spends most of the day sleeping. Finally, Lee loses his patience. He throws open the curtains and tells her she can't keep hiding from the world. Lucy suddenly breaks down. Through tears, she cries, "Why does life keep taking everyone away from me? First my dad, then my mother, and now my grandmother." Without saying another word, Lee pulls her into a tight hug, determined not to let her face this pain alone. Lee gently hugs Lucy and whispers, "Don't worry, I'm here for you and I won't let you feel alone." After she's discharged from the hospital, he takes her to his mother's house instead of letting her return to an empty apartment. He prepares a room for her and says, "You haven't rested properly in days. Eat well, sleep well, and tomorrow we'll start over." He gives Lucy his bedroom and quietly sleeps on the couch outside. The next morning, Lee tries to make breakfast himself, but cooking clearly isn't his talent. Even the food he ordered gets delayed because of the rain. Embarrassed, he laughs. Looks like breakfast will be a little late. I'm still not as good as you. Then he asks, where do you want to go today? Lucy softly replies, let's go to the beach. As they walk along the shore, she admits how lonely she has been feeling. Lee understands that pain better than anyone. When my mom passed away, I felt exactly the same. That's why I know what you're going through, but I promise you won't have to face it alone. Lucy can no longer hold back her tears and hugs him tightly. Lee gently comforts her. Your grandmother may not be here anymore, but she'll always be watching over you. Her love and blessings will never leave your side. The peaceful ocean slowly begins to calm Lucy's heart. She remembers how, as a little girl, her father told her to write wishes on paper and keep them under her pillow because they would always come true. She smiles and says, I later realized Dad was the one making those wishes come true. Lee asks what wish never came true. When I was 9, I wished for a bicycle after getting caught in the rain. I thought if I had one, I wouldn't have gotten sick. Later, Lucy tells him she's feeling much better now. She promises she'll return home and start taking care of herself again. That night, after she falls asleep, Lee quietly sneaks out. He spends the entire night at the arcade playing game after game to break the high score record. The prize is a brand new bicycle. The next morning, Lucy leaves for work while Lee is still asleep. When she arrives at the arcade, everyone tells her Lee stayed there all night and won the grand prize. Suddenly, she understands everything. She rushes home. Waiting outside her apartment is a brand new bicycle with a small note attached. A little gift for your new beginning. Lucy's eyes instantly fill with tears. For the first time since her grandmother's passing, she truly smiles. She immediately calls Lee. You stayed up all night just to win this for me? You should have given it to me yourself. Lee laughs. I just want to see you happy. Then Lucy jokingly asks, you carried this bike all the way to the 4th floor. Now who's going to carry it back down? Lee replies without hesitation, if I can carry the bike, I can carry you too. His answer finally brings a genuine smile back to Lucy's face. Boss Feng soon discovers that Lu has been using his name to scam innocent people and secretly pocketing the money. Furious, Boss Feng punishes him immediately. But instead of regretting what he did, Lu only wants to know who exposed him. At the same time, Lee can't stop worrying about Lucy now that she's living alone again. To keep her company, he stays on a phone call with her and promises not to hang up until she falls asleep. Before dozing off, Lucy quietly says that one of her biggest dreams is to see snowfall someday because she's never seen snow in her life. After she falls asleep, Lee simply can't bring himself to end the call. The next morning, they're still connected. Smiling, he buys her favorite noodles and heads to surprise her. But before he arrives, Lu storms into Lucy's house with several thugs. Blaming her for reporting him to Boss Feng, he orders his men to smash everything inside. When they try to destroy her precious bicycle, Lucy steps in to protect it and gets attacked. Hearing her screams through the phone, Lee rushes over without wasting a second. He fights Lu and his men while Lucy quickly calls the police, giving the police enough evidence to arrest them. Jiang also arrives and tells Lucy to finish the police formalities while he stays behind to clean up her damaged house. After leaving the station, Lucy gently scolds Lee for risking himself again, especially after seeing the injuries on his face. Not long after, Boss Feng learns everything that happened. Since Lucy's house had been mortgaged to him, Boss Feng explains that Lucy needs about $2,000 to clear the debt, but after saving every penny she could, she has managed to gather only about $1,400. Without hesitation, Lee hands her the remaining about $600, revealing that he even sold his motorcycle to help her. Deeply moved by his kindness, Lucy promises to pay him back every cent. Boss Feng then returns the house documents, officially clearing her debt and assuring her that no one will trouble her again. Just then, Lee receives news that his grandfather has been hospitalized. Lucy goes with him, but he asks her to wait outside because he doesn't want her dragged into his family's endless conflicts. Inside the hospital, Lee's father and aunt pretend to care about Grandpa, but Grandpa knows they're only interested in the company shares. Unlike them, Lee ignores the inheritance completely. He simply asks Grandpa to recover quickly and come back home, making it clear that his grandfather's health matters far more than money. Afterward, while the family continues arguing over the company's future behind closed doors, Guyan comes outside and tries to convince Lucy to stay away from Lee. Lucy looks her mother straight in the eyes and says, "You have no right to decide my future. I hate you." But Guyan refuses to feel guilty. She says she only wanted a better life and wasn't willing to spend the rest of her life in poverty. Lucy immediately fires back, saying, "You may have chosen wealth, but you lost your dignity. They don't even respect you. They made you wait outside while discussing their family business." Guyan coldly replies, "At least I'm not poor." She then warns Lucy to stay away from Lee, insisting that the Lu family is too complicated and that she should focus on building her own future instead. Just then, Lee's father and aunt walk out, still arguing over the company shares. Both of them are desperate to control the business, while Lee's own 10% stake has become another part of their power struggle. Watching the entire scene, Lucy feels even more sorry for Lee. She joins him for lunch at the hospital, and during their conversation learns that the next day is Guyon's wedding to Lee's father. She asks if he's still upset about it. Lee smiles faintly and says he no longer cares. The only person on his mind now is Lucy. Later, Lucy returns home, where Jiang is waiting for her. He offers to help replace everything that was destroyed during Lu's attack, but Lucy politely refuses. Zhang then reminds her that she'll always have a place at his home if she ever feels lonely. Lucy thanks him, but admits she still can't forget how his mother treated Lee. Even so, Zhang promises that their friendship will never change. The next morning, Lucy brings breakfast to the hospital. She and Lee enjoy a quiet meal together before Lee tells her that Grandpa will be discharged today. Even so, he has no intention of attending his father's wedding. Before leaving, Lucy decides to visit Dr. Chen to thank him for taking care of her grandmother. But on her way, she overhears several doctors discussing Guyon's marriage. They reveal a heartbreaking truth. Years ago, Lucy's father still had a chance to live longer if he had undergone another operation. But Guyon refused to continue the treatment. Shocked, Lucy rushes to Dr. Chen and asks if it's true. Dr. Chen sadly confirms that although her father's cancer was advanced, the surgery could have given him several more years of life. The truth completely shatters Lucy. She realizes her mother chose the insurance money over saving her own husband. Then another painful thought crosses her mind. What if her grandmother also gave up treatment because of Guyon's influence? To Lucy, it feels as if her mother destroyed both the people she loved the most. Meanwhile, Grandpa is discharged from the hospital. Before leaving, he tells Lee, "If you want to attend the wedding, go ahead. And if you don't, just tell them I asked you to stay with me." Meanwhile, Guyon is finally living the dream she had chased for years. Her luxurious wedding begins with countless VIP guests in attendance. But the ceremony is suddenly interrupted when Lucy arrives. The guards try to stop her, but she pushes her way inside and confronts her mother. She accuses Guyon of convincing Grandma to give up treatment, just like she did with her father. "You destroyed Dad, and now you've destroyed Grandma too." Guyon desperately tries to calm her down, saying this isn't the time or place. But as more guests gather around, she completely loses her temper. She publicly humiliates Lucy, accusing her of being an ungrateful daughter who wasted her education and came only to ruin her wedding. She then orders the guards to throw her out. Before anyone can touch Lucy, Lee steps in. He warns everyone not to lay a hand on her. Since everyone knows he's Grandpa's favorite grandson, no one dares to move. Before leaving, Lee looks straight at his father and says, "You two are perfect for each other. You both betrayed the people who loved you." He reminds his father that his betrayal drove Lee's mother to her death, then coldly tells Guyon that becoming the Lu family's wife won't bring her happiness. Instead, she'll spend the rest of her life suffering just like his mother did. With that, Lee takes Lucy away, completely ruining the wedding Guyon had waited years for. To help Lucy calm down, Lee takes her to his art studio. He throws paint across a blank canvas, encouraging her to pour all of her anger into it. Lucy follows his lead, slowly releasing the pain she has carried for so long. Meanwhile, Guyon's perfect wedding turns into a disaster. The guests whisper behind her back, and before long, even her new husband leaves on a business trip without saying a word. He ignores all her calls and simply asks the driver to take her home. Later, seeing Lucy still heartbroken, Lee gently hugs her. Lucy quietly says, "When summer ends and you leave to study abroad, I'll be all alone again." Lee smiles and makes the biggest decision of his life. "I've changed my mind. I'm not going abroad anymore. I'll stay here with you. I'll protect you, and we'll face everything together." Meanwhile, Zhang's mother is furious after learning that Lee's father has remarried. While drinking, she tells Zhang that once he gets into university, they'll leave this place forever and start a new life elsewhere. The next morning, Lucy wakes up to a beautiful bouquet from Lee. He tells her the yard looks too empty and suggests planting flowers so she can decorate it however she likes. Later, they meet Fang and Meng, who have finally become a couple. Afterward, Lee tells Lucy he has to visit Grandpa and asks her to wait for him at home. Instead, Lucy goes to a nursery, buys several flowers, and spends the afternoon decorating the yard as a surprise for Lee. She happily texts him to come home soon, and he replies that he's already on his way. However, Lee first visits Grandpa and tells him he won't use his 10% company shares to support either his father or his aunt. Grandpa respects his decision, but the moment Lee leaves, his father corners him. He threatens to make Lucy's life a living nightmare unless Lee cooperates. All Lee has to do is accompany him to an important shareholders meeting and pretend they're one happy family. After that, he must study abroad and stay away from Lucy. Knowing Lucy is his biggest weakness, Lee reluctantly agrees. As soon as they reach the Lu mansion, his father confiscates his phone and locks him inside, warning him not to leave until the meeting is over. Meanwhile, Lucy becomes worried after Lee suddenly stops answering her calls. Fang explains that this isn't unusual. Whenever Li upsets his father, he's often locked inside the house. Lucy refuses to wait any longer. Jiang overhears everything and offers to help. Since he's part of the Lu family, he can enter the mansion freely. He secretly leaves the gate unlocked, allowing Lucy to sneak inside. She quietly slips into the garden, throws a few small stones at Li's window, and finally gets his attention. Li is shocked to see her and immediately signals for her to leave. He even sends her a message apologizing for breaking his promise and asks her to go home, but Lucy refuses. "I'm not leaving without you." Meanwhile, Jiang keeps Li's father busy by pretending to return a fountain pen. He also tells him that he and his mother will soon move to Beijing and cut all ties with the Lu family. His father invites him inside and, as expected, starts lecturing him about his future. He insists Jiang should study architecture instead of computer science because a man's career is more important than love. He even mocks Li for risking everything over a relationship. Just then, the mansion's fire alarm suddenly goes off. As the guards rush downstairs to investigate, Li quietly grabs his phone, and Lucy finally reaches him, giving the two of them the perfect chance to escape together. With the emergency lights flashing throughout the mansion, everyone rushes to find Li. Although the guards chase them for a while, they eventually lose their trail. When Li's father realizes Lucy was behind the escape, he is furious. He immediately blames Jiang for betraying him. After scolding him, he orders Jiang to fix his mistake by attending an important business dinner the next day. Li was supposed to go, but now Jiang has to take his place. When Jiang asks if he's nothing more than Li's replacement, his father coldly replies that Li gave up the opportunity, so Jiang should simply be grateful. Meanwhile, Li and Lucy leave the city to fulfill Lucy's dream of seeing snow. They board a train and enjoy every moment of the journey together before arriving in a beautiful northern town. They explore the streets, taste the local food, play games, and for the first time in a long while, both of them feel completely free. While walking around, they come across a small church where a simple wedding is taking place. Watching the ceremony, Lucy quietly says that every girl dreams of a moment like that. Li smiles and finally asks her to be his girlfriend. Without hesitation, she says yes. The two share their first kiss and officially begin their relationship. Later, Lucy falls asleep in Li's lap and dreams that they're the ones getting married in the same church. But just as the ceremony ends, Li hands her a storybook and tells her that fairy tales aren't real. As she opens the book, every smiling character turns into a monster. The dream reminds her of her own parents' marriage, making her wonder if every happy ending eventually turns into heartbreak. Thankfully, it was only a nightmare. Back in the city, Li's father takes Jiang to meet an important business partner. Although the meeting goes well and everyone praises Jiang for getting into one of the country's top universities, Jiang looks completely miserable. The reason soon becomes clear. After returning home, he sees his mother preparing to rent out their house before moving away. Unable to hold back his emotions, Jiang lashes out and destroys everything in his room. He finally admits that even the clothes and shoes he wore to the meeting belong to Li. No matter how hard he tries, everyone only sees him as Li's replacement. Meanwhile, Li and Lucy run into another problem. When they arrive at a hotel, all of Li's bank cards are declined because his father has frozen every account. Left with very little money, they have no choice but to find a much cheaper place to stay. Wanting to continue their journey north, they realize they can't afford train or bus tickets anymore. Instead, Li buys an old from a scrapyard, repairs it himself, and the two continue their adventure on two wheels. Despite all the hardships, neither of them complains. As long as they are together, every mile of the journey feels worth it. Li and Lucy spend their days exploring the town, taking countless photos, and making unforgettable memories together. While Li enjoys every moment, Lucy is already planning for their future. She carefully thinks about where they should live and how they can balance work with their studies. Before long, they find a simple place to stay. Although it's small, they clean it up together and turn it into a cozy home. The owner also lets them work at the small guest house and restaurant to earn some extra money. They soon grow attached to the owner's adorable dog, which quickly becomes part of their daily lives. Life isn't luxurious. Most days they survive on instant noodles, but neither of them complains. One day, Lucy tells Li that she wants to retake the college entrance exam because it was her grandmother's final dream. She promises to get into a good university and make her proud. Li smiles and says, "Then I'll follow the same path as you. Wherever you go, that's where my future is. I want to spend every summer with you." Lucy is touched by his words and replies with a smile, "Why only summer? We'll spend every season together." Later, they visit a bookstore to buy study materials. Fang is surprised to hear that Li is studying so seriously since he could easily enter a private university. But Li explains that things have changed. "My future is tied to Lucy's now. I want to stand beside her, not behind her. That's why I'll earn my place myself." Before leaving the bookstore, they secretly buy gifts for each other. That evening, they sit together beside a bonfire and finally exchange their presents. Lee gives Lucy the very first photo they ever took together, the one captured on the day they first met. Lucy smiles and hands him a beautiful photo frame. They both freeze for a moment before laughing. Without discussing it, they had bought gifts that perfectly completed each other. It feels like fate itself is reminding them that they were always meant to be together. Before we continue the story, if you're enjoying this recap, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps support the channel and motivates me to keep bringing you more amazing stories. I spend days creating these recaps, always trying to deliver the best experience possible with high-quality 4K visuals, smooth narration, and the best editing I can provide without compromising on quality. Thank you so much for your support. Now let's get back to the story. The following day, Lee's aunt came to persuade him to hand over his shares. Lee agreed, but only if she gave him enough money to make sure Lucy would never have to struggle for the rest of her life. His aunt was deeply touched by his sincerity. She thanked him before quietly leaving. Not long after, Lucy received a threatening call from Lee's father. He warned her that she had better return his son before things became much worse. The threat left her deeply worried, especially after learning that Lee wanted to return to their hometown to collect their school records. She suggested going alone to get them, but Lee refused. Instead, he insisted they go together. Before entering the city, Lee took Lucy to a suspension bridge. Despite acting calm, he was terrified of crossing it. Lucy patiently encouraged him until he found the courage to continue. Once they reached the other side, Lee reassured her that everything would be fine. The two of them returned to their old school, collected their files, and visited their former teachers, who were overjoyed to see them together again. The moment Lee's father learned that he had returned, he immediately sent his assistant to bring him home. Lee had no choice but to go. At the same time, Luo had just been released from prison. The moment he found out Lee was back, he began planning his revenge. Lee stood before his father without showing the slightest fear. He told him that no punishment could ever make up for everything he had done to his mother. As he walked out, he ran into Lucy's mother, who had officially been thrown out of the family. Furious, she swore that if she could not become part of their family, she would destroy them instead. Lee calmly replied that he no longer cared about that family at all. Later, Lee told Lucy everything that had happened. Lucy finally admitted that Lee's father had secretly threatened her as well. Lee gently told her that she should have trusted him and told him from the beginning. Lucy explained that she had already booked their tickets for the next day because all her work was finished, which reassured Lee. Meanwhile, Lee's father decided once again to choose Yan over his own son. When his father discovered his decision, he angrily scolded him for refusing to cut ties with his illegitimate son. Afterward, he deliberately filled Yan's head with poisonous words, telling him that everyone looked down on him and that he needed to prove himself. Taking those words to heart, Yan finally confessed his feelings to Lucy. However, Lucy gently told him that she had always seen him as nothing more than an older brother and a close friend. Heartbroken, Yan asked if all she could see was Lee. Devastated, Yan returned home, where his mother immediately began talking about his grades and studies. Unable to hold back his emotions any longer, he blamed her for everything, saying that because of the circumstances of his birth, everyone looked down on him. His mother was crushed by his words and quietly reminded him that he was the only family she had left. Unable to stay there any longer, Yan left the house and wandered the streets drinking by himself. While he was drinking, Luo found him. After realizing that Lucy had returned with Lee, Luo decided the time for revenge had finally come. The following day, just as Lucy was leaving to meet Lee at the station, Luo and his men suddenly kidnapped her. When Lucy regained consciousness, they forced her to call Lee. Hearing Lucy being beaten over the phone filled Lee with panic. Following Luo's instructions, he immediately rushed to the location alone. Luo and his men surrounded Lee, beat him mercilessly, humiliated him, and even forced him onto his knees. Watching everything unfold, Lucy could no longer remain still. She managed to free herself and smashed a brick over Luo's head. Completely enraged, Luo grabbed a knife and charged straight toward Lucy. Without hesitation, Lee stepped in front of her and took the knife himself. Luo immediately fled the scene. Lucy completely collapsed as she watched Lee lying there covered in blood. Even after they reached the hospital, she was too devastated to answer anyone's questions about his condition. Once she had calmed down slightly, Lee's grandfather spoke to her. He told Lucy that he did not blame her because Lee had chosen to go there himself. However, he also admitted that if Lee had never met her, none of this would have happened, and this was never the kind of life he wanted for his grandson. Lucy already blamed herself for everything. She quietly decided that once Lee recovered and she knew he was safe, she would leave him forever. Although Lee's grandfather forbade her from seeing him, Lucy secretly prepared soup for him every day and found ways to check on him without being noticed. When Lee finally woke up, the first person he saw beside him was Lucy. He felt an overwhelming sense of relief knowing she was safe. Moments later, his grandfather arrived, ready to send Lucy away, but Lee's aunt stopped him. Li immediately protected Lucy and refused to let anyone blame her. Lucy then begged his grandfather to let her stay, only until Li had fully recovered. After that, she promised she would disappear from his life forever. His grandfather reluctantly agreed. From then on, Lucy devoted herself to taking care of Li. Even the nurses and the housekeeper couldn't help noticing how naturally the two of them cared for each other. As Li steadily recovered, Lucy grew increasingly sad. When Li noticed her expression, he jokingly asked if she didn't want him to get better. Lucy quickly denied it, claiming she would simply miss the hospital food after he left, but Li knew she wasn't telling the truth. On the day Li was discharged, he called Lucy and asked her to come pick him up. Before they left, Lucy trimmed his hair so it wouldn't bother him anymore. After spending one last peaceful day together, Lucy took Li to a beautiful place. She suggested they play hide and seek and asked him to close his eyes. The moment Li closed them, Lucy quietly walked away. Before leaving, she confessed everything. She admitted that she had originally approached him because of her mother and the money connected to his family. She also confessed that when they ran away together, she had only stayed with him because she wanted to escape her own problems. Finally, cruelest lie of all, she said she had never loved him. Li was completely devastated. He searched everywhere for Lucy, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find her. Meanwhile, Lucy kept running away from him, heartbroken herself, believing that leaving him was the only way to protect him. A month later, while Li was sitting alone at a bar, another woman confessed her feelings to him. Hoping he could finally move on, he agreed to date her. However, the relationship didn't last long. One day, he accidentally found a wish note that Lucy had hidden inside his pillow before she left. Reading her heartfelt words gave him hope that perhaps everything she had said was a lie and that she had been forced to leave him. He immediately called Lucy, but she ignored every one of his calls. She didn't even bother blocking him, making him wait in silence instead. Eventually, she finally answered. The moment she picked up, Li broke down in tears. He asked her if she had ever truly loved him. He promised that if she admitted her feelings, he would forgive everything that had happened. But Lucy coldly replied that she didn't know him anymore and told him to move on with his life. Li's expression immediately changed. He warned her that one day he would make her regret everything she had done to him. Time passed, but Li never truly recovered. During celebrations, he would leave his friends behind, imagining Lucy standing beside him. He would even dance with nothing but empty air, while his embarrassed best friend secretly recorded the heartbreaking scene. 10 years passed. Lucy had become one of the key employees at a major company. During an important bidding project, she skipped the presentation because she was playing tennis instead. While there, she impressed an elderly businessman who turned out to be the owner of the company they were competing against. Lucy quickly exposed the deception being used by the rival team, convincing him that they were misleading him. After investigating the situation, he publicly announced Lucy's company as the winner. Her manager, who had been planning to fire her, was suddenly overjoyed and decided to celebrate the successful project with the entire team. However, Lucy skipped the dinner because she was heading to the airport to pick up Yan. At the same time, Li also returned to the city. His best friend welcomed him home, and it was revealed that Than had become Li's manager. Li was now a famous artist known by his professional name, and he was preparing for a major exhibition. Although Than was worried because several paintings were still unfinished, Li remained as calm as ever. The following day, Lucy and Yan visited their old school together. They entered their former classroom and placed flowers in memory of their teacher, who had passed away. Sitting quietly in the classroom, Lucy remembered all the precious memories she had shared there before thinking about Li. Tears filled her eyes, completely unaware that Li had arrived at the school only moments later and was remembering those exact same memories. After leaving the school, Li visited his grandfather. As usual, his grandfather tried to convince him to join the family company, especially since his father and aunt were constantly fighting over control of the business. Li reminded his grandfather that he had promised to let him choose his own path, and he intended to remain an artist. Afterward, Li returned to his mother's house to continue painting. His aunt called and asked to meet him, but Li declined, saying he didn't want any more trouble while everything was already so complicated. Not long afterward, his best friend suddenly showed up, complaining that he wanted to divorce his wife. Ironically, his wife went straight to Lucy, complaining that even after 3 years of marriage and finally receiving their new apartment, her husband still hadn't even bothered furnishing it. Lucy patiently comforted her, while Li tried talking some sense into his friend as well. Eventually, Li became frustrated and took his dog out for a walk. While walking, he noticed the arcade game that he and Lucy had always played together years ago. He tied his dog outside and walked inside. At the very same moment, Lucy happened to see the dog. It instantly reminded her of the puppy she had once raised together with Li. She happily took pictures with the dog and smiled as she told the owner that she had once had a dog just like him. Then Li quietly walked up behind her. The moment he saw Lucy again after all those years, he froze. He calmly told her that the dog's name was Leo and that he had raised him together with the woman he had loved more than anyone else. But that woman had abandoned both him and the dog. He reminded her that he had once promised that if they ever met again, she would be the one crying and begging. Lucy struggled to hold back her tears. She quickly wiped her eyes, greeted him as if nothing had happened, and confidently replied that she wasn't going to cry for him before walking away. Lee returned home furious. The next day, he confronted Than, demanding to know why nobody had told him Lucy had returned years ago. He also questioned his aunt, asking why she had hidden the truth from him. His aunt admitted that she had done it on purpose because she knew that if Lee had discovered Lucy had come back after graduation, he would have abandoned everything overseas and returned for her, throwing his entire life away. Lee quietly replied that his life had already stopped the day Lucy left. His aunt then encouraged him to return to the family business and showed him the proposal for the second phase of the resort project that his father had originally built 20 years earlier. She explained that she wanted to lead the project this time, while Lee's father was supporting another company. As Lee reviewed the proposal, he suddenly noticed Lucy's name on one of the competing teams. The moment he realized she was working on the rival project, he decided to compete against her himself. During the official presentation, Lee unexpectedly walked in with the opposing team. Lucy was stunned to see him standing there, but she quickly regained her composure and confidently presented her proposal. She explained that they didn't want the resort to be known only for luxury and elegance. More importantly, they wanted every guest to feel warmth, comfort, and the feeling of being home. As Lee listened to her presentation, memories of the days they had run away together and built their own little world came flooding back, leaving him deeply moved by every word she spoke. Lucy and her team successfully won the first round of the competition, leaving only 2 finalists in the project, her team and Lee's. Although Lucy was annoyed, her teammates became even more nervous after discovering that Lee was actually the grandson of the company's owner. Still, Lucy encouraged everyone, telling them they still had a real chance of winning. That evening, as Lucy headed out to celebrate with her team, she unexpectedly ran into Lee. He was completely drunk. She tried to walk away, but he stepped in front of her. Then, to her surprise, he quietly begged her not to leave him alone. Seeing him in such a miserable state softened her heart. She helped him into a taxi, intending to send him somewhere safe, but Lee stubbornly insisted that she take him home instead. Once they arrived, he looked completely helpless. The proud man who had once promised to make her regret everything was now desperately begging her to stay by his side. For a moment, Lucy almost gave in, but she quickly reminded herself that she couldn't let her feelings control her again. The next morning, Lee woke up to find that Lucy had already left. Before leaving, she had prepared breakfast for him. His best friend smiled and told him that Lucy obviously still cared about him and probably still loved him. Hearing that gave Lee a little hope, but he refused to let his emotions interfere with the competition. Instead, he hired experienced professionals to strengthen his team. Meanwhile, Lucy became so busy preparing for the project that she barely had time to eat. When Yan noticed this, he invited her out for dinner. During the meal, he confessed his feelings once again and asked if they could be together. Lucy gently turned him down. She told him that she had always seen him as an older brother and nothing more. Besides, she was too busy to think about a relationship. Yan quietly asked if the reason was still Lee. Before Lucy could answer, Lee suddenly appeared in front of them. He interrupted their dinner and shamelessly tried to convince Lucy to withdraw from the competition and let him win. Lucy immediately refused, calling him childish. Lee simply smiled and promised to show her what being childish really looked like. The following day, Lee's team officially won the next stage of the bidding process. Lucy's entire team was disappointed, and she was especially frustrated by the loss. Trying to cheer her up, her best friend took her to visit the resort where the project would be built. Standing there, Lucy suddenly remembered something extremely important. She recalled the day her mother had gone to her grandmother's house after being thrown out by Lee's father. Her mother revealed that she had never been responsible for her husband's death. Instead, Lee's father had secretly arranged everything that destroyed their family. Years earlier, he had offered Lucy's father a huge amount of money to buy the factory land, but her father refused because he wanted to continue his own project. After that, every supplier cut ties with them. Then, another businessman approached Lucy's father, pretending to help him, but secretly provided defective materials that forced the factory into bankruptcy. The overwhelming debts destroyed the entire family. Her mother later discovered that the mastermind behind everything was Lee's father. She explained that she had originally approached him only to take revenge, never knowing who he really was. Eventually, she caught him meeting the con artist who had ruined their family and realized he had planned everything from the very beginning. From that moment on, she understood she could never defeat him directly. So she continued pretending to stay close to him while waiting for an opportunity. She also knew that Lee would never be able to help her because, no matter what happened, he would always choose his own father. What Lucy never knew was that after she disappeared, Lee spent 10 years receiving psychiatric treatment. He He suffered from severe insomnia and anxiety and rarely slept peacefully. The first night he finally managed to sleep well after seeing Lucy again, he called his psychiatrist. His doctor advised him to start writing in a journal again to speed up his recovery. Lee followed the advice immediately. At the same time, Lucy met with Lee's aunt. She offered to work with her on the resort project in exchange for a file containing evidence of bribery involving Lee's father and the manager of her own company. Lee's aunt became suspicious, believing Lucy was only trying to make Lee fall in love with her again. However, Lucy showed no interest in that at all. His aunt told her that such a thing would never happen because Lee would never allow himself to fall for her again. Later, after hearing about her proposal, he was shocked by her decision and became curious about why she suddenly wanted to cooperate with his aunt. Rather than refusing, he decided to play along and discover her real intentions. Soon afterward, Wan invited Lee to appear on her television program for an interview. Lee agreed, but only on one condition. Lucy had to be there. When she arrived at the studio, she found all the female staff admiring Lee, wondering whether the famous artist was already in a relationship. She couldn't help smiling at how successful he had become. However, during the interview, her smile slowly disappeared. The host asked why every painting he created during winter carried such sadness. Lee answered honestly. He said he had once lost the most important person in his life during winter, making him hate the season completely. Then another woman entered his life and taught him how beautiful life could be, but she abandoned him during winter as well. Since then, winter had remained the most painful season of his life. Unable to hear anymore, Lucy quietly stood up and walked away. Lee immediately followed her. He dragged her back to his house and told her to stand still because he wanted to paint her as his model. He jokingly warned her not to misunderstand, saying she wasn't his inspiration. He simply needed a professional model. When Lucy misunderstood and thought she needed to remove her clothes for the artwork, Lee quickly stopped her. He reminded her that she had completely destroyed his life. Because of that, she now owed him compensation. From now on, she would work as his assistant, and if she truly wanted a place on the project team, she had no choice but to accept. Lucy reluctantly agreed. Lee secretly found himself happier than he expected. The following day, he successfully convinced the investors to support his aunt's proposal for the resort. His father was furious. To keep an eye on everything, he ordered Jan to join their team as the strategic director and secretly report every move they made. Jan accepted the position without hesitation. Later, he discovered that Lucy had also joined the same team. Surprised, he asked why she had made that decision. Judging from the look in her eyes, Jan realized she was carrying out a carefully planned strategy of her own. He asked if there was anything he could do to help, but she simply smiled and told him there was nothing he could do. After packing her belongings, Lucy headed to Lee's house. The moment she arrived, Lee casually informed her that she would be sleeping in the same room as him. It was a completely unexpected arrangement. Ironically, Lee himself wasn't comfortable with the idea either. Watching her sleep in his room left him feeling unusually restless. The next morning, he woke up to find Lucy already awake. She had even prepared a delicious breakfast for him. Lee was surprised by how naturally she took care of him. Pretending not to be affected, he deliberately tried to annoy her by reminding her that their meeting would begin in only 30 minutes. Since it was Lucy's first day at the company, she had to complete all of her registration procedures before joining the team. When she finally arrived, everyone welcomed her warmly. Not long afterward, Jan arrived as well and announced that he would also be joining the project team. Lee immediately noticed that Jan was still clearly interested in Lucy. Using his authority, Lee deliberately assigned Lucy to work closely with him, making sure she stayed busy with him instead of spending time with Jan. After work, Lucy prepared dinner for Lee. While cooking, she accidentally burned her hand. She laughed and said, "I worked in a noodle restaurant all throughout college without getting burned once. But the first time I cook for you, I burn myself. Maybe that's a sign." Instead of laughing, Lee quietly became worried. He washed the dishes himself and later found Lucy resting her head on the table. Thinking she had fallen asleep, he gently applied ointment to her injured hand. Lucy secretly smiled, touched by his kindness. Just then, her phone rang. Her friend explained that the electricity at her apartment had gone out. Since the building was very old, the repairs would take several days. With nowhere else to stay, Lucy had no choice but to continue living at Lee's house. Back at work, Lee constantly criticized every suggestion anyone made. Whenever someone presented an idea, he would casually dismiss it as outdated. Lucy couldn't help complaining about how childish he was. Lee acted completely indifferent until Lucy accidentally burned herself again because of him. The moment it happened, both of them panicked. They immediately began wiping the hot water off each other, completely forgetting everyone around them. Just then, Jan walked over and told Lee to dry his clothes properly. Lee purposely teased him by smiling and saying, "Don't worry, she already took care of it." Yan immediately understood Li was provoking him and walked away, clearly annoyed. He invited Lucy to visit his mother so they could celebrate her birthday together. Lucy reluctantly agreed. She then sent Li a message telling him she wouldn't be going home with him that evening. Instead of replying normally, Li deliberately started talking loudly as if he were speaking to someone on the phone. Then he texted her, asking how he was supposed to eat dinner if she wasn't there. Lucy couldn't help laughing. She replied, "Right, as if you'd starve without me. Fine, I'll cook dinner for you when I get back." Lucy then went with Yan, while Li stayed behind to buy groceries for the house. The entire time, Li kept calling and texting her every few minutes, asking if she needed anything. She answered patiently before finally hanging up so she could focus on spending time with Yan's mother. Yan's mother had developed Alzheimer's 2 years earlier. She remembered only a few simple things now. Ironically, Yan felt that this had made her happier than before because she had forgotten most of the painful memories caused by Li's family. Later that evening, Yan drove Lucy home. Unfortunately, Li saw them together. His heart instantly sank. After Yan left, Li walked over and casually asked where she had been. Lucy honestly told him that she had gone to celebrate Yan's mother's birthday and hadn't mentioned it because she didn't want him to worry. Instead of getting angry, Li was secretly happy. For the first time, she hadn't hidden the truth from him. The two of them returned home together. That night, as they went to sleep, Li naturally wrapped his arms around her. Lucy nervously whispered that she couldn't sleep like that. Li simply smiled and replied, "I can. That's all that matters." The next morning, Lucy received an urgent call from the manager of another company they worked with. Believing it was about business, she went to meet him. Instead, the man tried to harass her. Lucy immediately fought back, escaped, and hurried home. She repeatedly listened to the recording she had secretly made during the incident, worried that people might somehow blame her instead. Meanwhile, Li accidentally came across old news reports about the resort. While reading them, he discovered that the resort had been built on the land where Lucy's father's factory once stood. For the first time, he realized his own father had truly wronged Lucy's family. Without telling her anything, he secretly hired a private investigator to uncover the entire truth. The following day, while Lucy was heading to work, the harasser's wife suddenly appeared and tried to attack her. Her husband had convinced her that Lucy had seduced him. Fortunately, both Li and Yan rushed to protect her, along with several of her coworkers. When Li learned everything that had happened, he was furious. He didn't care whether exposing the truth would damage their business partnership. He publicly revealed the man's actions, and several other victims came forward with similar accusations. Lucy was deeply moved by how firmly Li stood by her side. Later, Li asked Lucy to find something for him inside his room. While searching, she accidentally discovered the medication he had been taking, along with his psychiatric diagnosis. She also found his personal journal. As she read it, she realized how miserable his life had been after she disappeared. The guilt inside her only grew stronger. When Li returned, she treated him much more gently and admitted that she had learned everything. Li explained that his anxiety had started after his mother's death. The symptoms had already existed back then, but they became much better while Lucy was by his side years ago, which was why she had never noticed them. After she disappeared, however, everything came back. He told her she wasn't entirely responsible. If she wanted to leave again, he wouldn't stop her because she didn't owe him anything. Lucy looked at him and quietly replied that she would stay until she knew he was completely better, not because she pitied him, but because she truly wanted to. Without saying another word, Li pulled her into a warm embrace. From that day forward, the two of them became awkward around each other, both clearly aware that their feelings had returned. Soon afterward, the private investigator finally reported everything that had happened years ago. After learning the complete truth, Li felt deeply sorry for Lucy's father and became determined to help her uncover justice. Before he could take action, however, Fang sent both of them an invitation to his birthday celebration, and the two of them decided to attend together. Before heading to Fang's birthday party, Lucy's best friend convinced her that they should watch a movie first. After the movie ended, they talked about how the hero had risked everything to protect the heroine. Listening to the story reminded Lucy of everything Li had done for her, and she couldn't help becoming emotional. When they finally arrived at the party, Lucy did her best to act naturally around Li. During the celebration, Fang quietly told her how Li had been living during the years she was gone. Hearing everything broke her heart. Then Fang showed her the old video he had secretly recorded years ago, the one where Li danced alone during the celebration while imagining Lucy was still beside him. After watching the video, Lucy could no longer deny her feelings. At last, the two of them decided to give their relationship another chance. Meanwhile, Fang and his wife returned home together. Their apartment was still unfinished, and when the lights suddenly stopped working, his wife tried to replace the bulb herself. After failing, she burst into tears and blamed Fang, reminding him that she had begged him countless times to finish preparing their home so they could finally live together properly. Because he had always been too lazy to do it, Fang finally realized how much he had been hurting her and sincerely understood why she'd been so upset. As for Li and Lucy, they spent the night together. While they were lying down, Lucy noticed the scar from the knife wound he had received while protecting her. Her eyes immediately filled with tears. Li gently reassured her that it didn't hurt anymore. Then he reminded her of the promise he had made years ago, that if she ever admitted she truly loved him, he would forgive everything. Lucy smiled through her tears and finally confessed that she loved him. Without any hesitation, Li forgave her. Lucy then admitted that during all those years apart, she had dreamed about him countless times. She had always wanted to return to him, but she was too afraid that getting close to him again would only bring him more pain. The next morning, Li begged her to give him another chance. Ironically, he had once proudly claimed that Lucy would be the one begging him. Instead, he was the one pleading with her. He even woke up early to prepare breakfast for her. The two of them were sweeter than ever. Unlike Fang and his wife, who woke up arguing once again before she stormed out of the house. The following day, Lucy's company searched for a replacement business partner after cutting ties with the company whose manager had harassed her. They found another promising company, but its director refused to meet them and deliberately kept them waiting. When they were finally invited inside, Li was shocked. The director was Lin, the woman who had dated him after Lucy disappeared. Li acted as though he had never met her before. Lin immediately embarrassed him by reminding him of who she was. Fortunately, Lucy quickly became friendly with Lin, and together they convinced her to cooperate with their project. Lin promised that she would persuade the company's president to approve the partnership. Later, Lucy jokingly complained to Li for never mentioning that he had dated Lin. However, Lin personally explained that Li had never truly cared about her and that she had been the one chasing him all along. That completely reassured Lucy. Soon afterward, Lin called with good news. The company's president had officially agreed to work with them because he had been deeply moved by one of Li's paintings, which reflected the heartbreaking love story of the woman he had lost years earlier. The entire team celebrated the successful partnership. Everyone had already noticed how close Li and Lucy had become, but they all pretended not to notice. Lucy became so embarrassed that she could barely look anyone in the eye. Later, she took Li to visit her grandmother and her father's grave. There, she finally told him everything she had discovered about his father's crimes. Without hesitation, Li promised that he would support her no matter what she decided to do. The more he learned, the more he realized how terribly his father had wronged Lucy's family. On their way home, Lucy revealed that Li's father was currently trying to destroy another factory owner the same way he had destroyed her own father years ago. They immediately decided to help before it was too late. When they visited the factory owner's family, everyone was terrified of them at first. They assumed Li and Lucy had come either to demand money or to pressure them on behalf of the company. However, after Lucy shared her own family story, they slowly began trusting her. When the factory owner returned home, Li and Lucy convinced him to hand over all the documents proving that Li's father had destroyed his business. The next day, they returned to collect the evidence. To their surprise, the owner told them he had already handed every file to Yan. After hearing the description, Lucy immediately realized it had to be him. Yan soon contacted her and asked to meet. When they met, it seemed as though he was trying to bargain with her. He offered to hand over all the evidence if she agreed to leave Li. Yan promised that he would personally help her bring Li's father to justice. Lucy looked at him in disappointment and told him that if he was truly using the evidence to force her into a relationship, then he was no better than the people they were fighting. Yan quickly explained that she had misunderstood him. He simply wanted her to come back to him and leave Li. If she chose him instead, he would help her with everything. Lucy gently but firmly rejected him. She told Yan that she loved Li for who he truly was, not because he could help her. She admitted that she cared deeply about Yan as well, but only as a friend. She also reminded him that she had forgiven him long ago after discovering that Luo had learned she had returned to the city because of him, which had nearly gotten both her and Li killed. After saying those words, Lucy walked away, no longer able to trust him completely. What she didn't know was that Yan had already refused to help his own father. He had even fought with him because of everything that had happened. When Li's father discovered that both Lucy and his own son were secretly investigating him, he decided to play dirty once again. He sent his men to attack the factory owner. They deliberately told him that Li and Lucy were actually working for the same company responsible for ruining his life. Blinded by anger, the desperate man kidnapped Lucy. She happened to be on the phone with Li when it happened. Li immediately checked the nearby security cameras and rushed out to rescue her. Yan insisted on helping. Although Li still couldn't stand him, he had no choice but to let Yan come along. As they raced toward the location, Yan sincerely apologized. He admitted that jealousy had consumed him for years because everyone had always chosen Li over him. Li cut him off and said they could settle everything later. Right now, saving Lucy was all that mattered. Meanwhile, the factory owner had completely lost control. Determined to take revenge on everyone he believed had destroyed his life, he prepared to set the place on fire, with Lucy still trapped inside. Lee rushed into the burning building and managed to save Lucy, but he was seriously injured in the process. Seeing him covered in blood made Lucy break down because it reminded her of Luo. This time, however, Yan finally chose to do the right thing. He stepped in to help them, allowing the police to arrest the factory owner. The man also filed charges against Lee's father, exposing everything he had done to him. After that, Lee became even more protective of Lucy, constantly fussing over her for every little reason. Not long afterward, Lucy's mother called and asked to see her after watching the news. Although Lucy wasn't eager to meet her, she went anyway. To her surprise, her mother handed her an important file containing crucial evidence about her father's case and the injustice he had suffered. She admitted that she had once believed Lucy would end up just like her, unable to stand against Lee's family and eventually becoming one of them. But she had been wrong. Lucy had become far stronger than she ever was. She believed her daughter could finally bring justice to their family, so she entrusted the evidence to her before quietly walking away. Deeply moved, Lucy took the evidence straight to Lee's father's company, exposed everything in front of everyone, and then resigned from her job. Her mission had finally been accomplished. At last, she had cleared her father's name. Afterward, she ran straight to Lee. He couldn't have been prouder of her. Soon after, Lee brought Lucy to meet his grandfather and officially introduced her as the woman he loved. His grandfather strongly opposed the relationship at first. However, Lee calmly explained that his own parents had been considered the perfect match because of their wealth and social status, yet their marriage had ended in tragedy simply because they never divorced. He refused to repeat the same mistake. He wasn't going to marry a wealthy woman just for family approval like his father had done. Instead, he would choose the woman he truly loved, the woman who loved and supported him in return. His words finally convinced his grandfather, who warmly accepted Lucy into the family. Meanwhile, Fang's wife had already sold their apartment, but Fang refused to hand it over. She dragged him there to demand an explanation. When she opened the door, she was stunned. Fang had completely furnished the apartment exactly the way she had dreamed of the first day they had visited it together. He sincerely apologized, admitting that he had spent all his time working because he wanted to give them a better future. In the process, he forgot that their married life had already begun and that they should have been building that future together instead of waiting for the perfect moment. His heartfelt apology touched her deeply. The two of them reconciled and canceled their divorce. Later, she told Lucy that Fang had secretly bought the apartment back through a middleman just to surprise her with everything he had prepared. After hearing the story, Lucy couldn't help smiling. Wanting to create a special memory of her own, she prepared a surprise for Lee at the place where they had once spent so much time together. She decorated the entire area with beautiful lights and even brought back the old game they used to play. Just like always, Lee won. Then, to his complete surprise, Lucy pulled out a ring and proposed to him herself. Lee was completely speechless. A moment later, he happily accepted. The two of them officially announced their relationship and posted photos together on all their social media accounts, leaving everyone with no doubt that they were finally together. During Lee's art exhibition, Lucy's coworkers teased her nonstop after discovering the news. When they entered the gallery, they were amazed by Lee's paintings. Lucy searched for him but instead found one final surprise. Every painting in the exhibition told the story of their journey together. At the end of the gallery, she found a beautiful white dress waiting for her. After changing into it, she followed the path to the classroom where they had studied together years ago. There, Lee was waiting with another ring. This time, he got down on one knee and proposed to her properly. Lucy smiled through her tears and accepted. As they embraced, they reminisced about every precious memory they had shared. Sometime later, Fang invited them for another interview. This time, Lucy appeared beside Lee. Lee revealed that he had been in love with her ever since the summer of 2016. Then Lucy surprised everyone. She confessed that she had actually fallen in love with him back in 2013. The very first time her grandmother became seriously ill, Lucy had been crying alone. Lee had quietly handed her a handkerchief to wipe away her tears. Sometime later, she saw him again at school when he jumped over the school wall. She also revealed that the first photo they ever took together wasn't the famous confession photo everyone believed it was. It had actually been a candid picture taken much earlier, where Lee's face wasn't even clearly visible. Hearing that confession left Lee completely speechless. He looked as though he might burst into tears from happiness. As for Yan, he finally walked away from his father's company for good. At last, he broke free from his father's control and began living life on his own terms, just as Lucy had always hoped he would. And that's where this beautiful story comes to an end. After everything they went through, the misunderstandings, heartbreak, sacrifices, and years of waiting, they finally found the happiness they had always deserved. Sometimes true love doesn't come easy, but if two people are truly meant for each other, fate always finds a way to bring them back together. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next drama recap. Also, let me know in the comments, what was your favorite moment in this story, and which character stole your heart the most? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next recap.